What is up, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Group Up Podcast. We're here for the Great Tank Debate 2024 edition. Now, we've obviously done these before, but tank be tanking, changes be changing, and it always is worthwhile, I think, to periodically check in and see how the homies are feeling about the most debated role. I think that's fair to say at the moment. I think it used to be support for a while, but we're back to everybody talking about tank. So let's talk about tank. Let me introduce my guests in the top right, of course, here to talk tanks is my man Flats. Flats, what's up?
Hello. If my voice is a little bit crunchy, my bad. I've been sick for like the last week. I'm just barely getting over it now.
Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that, dude. I hope you're coming through it quicker than
I haven't gotten sick in like 5 years, and it was bad. I felt bad. I ducked you last week on the podcast. I felt like really bad about that, but
Don't worry about it, no
at least we're
stress.
here now.
We are here now, don't worry. And incorrectly named currently on the name tag, but it will soon be fixed. Is in the bottom right, Frito. Frito, what's up? How many hours of tank have you put in this season?
Oh, I don't know about hours, but over 1,000 games, like 1,100 games since I started streaming
Wow.
3 months ago.
Damn. All right. You've played more tank than me.
There you go.
Yeah,
Man,
I had hair when I started. It was this beautiful
Yeah, I
long,
remember.
like it looked like
Yeah.
Danteh.
Yeah, he had longer hair than me. He was like crazy, but it all fell. It all fell down.
It all fell apart. What can you do? That's the state of tank. Well, we'll get his opinions as well as in the top left, Bogur, as you already mentioned. Bogur, how have you been? How much tank have you been playing recently?
I mean, here and there, I play a little bit of tank, but not as dedicated as Frito. I still have hair on my head, thankfully. And yeah, I have played tank, but yeah, not too much. Not like before.
Not like before, not like those days.
Not that.
And
Yeah.
to round us off, we got the pro perspective for his first appearance on the podcast. Is my man
First?
Dante. Dante, what's up? I know.
Hi guys. I'm gonna start off with saying I have 2 games of tank this season. I've been
Expert.
grinding hard, so
Damn.
I have a lot of insight. In all seriousness, we've been practicing a lot for scrims and stuff. We just had the big college tournament, so we were doing like 2 or 3 blocks a day. That was last week, I think. And we have the Face It League coming up soon, so we've just been scrimming. So I haven't been playing that much ranked.
That's fair. That's fair. But I'm sure your opinion will be very, very helpful here, Dante. Of course, like I said, it's good to have like a variety of experiences here. With Frito and I we're stuck in Diamond Master. We got pro perspective, and we got Flats and Boga, who are always at the top end of the ladder. So we've got a little bit of a diverse opinion set. Although I know medal rank players, you'll be upset, but don't worry, we'll do our best to try and represent your POV as well. That there isn't a gold player in here, but I play like one, so we'll call it even. Now, as we always do, we'll just start with some opening thoughts. I want to touch base with you guys. What we're going to do is we're going to start by talking general tank, how you guys feel about the role in general, especially in light of the changes, the armor changes, the headshot changes. And then we'll go through each individual tank and we'll break it down. But first and foremost, just your overall, I don't need too much detail, just your overall sentiments on tank at the moment. Dante, I'm going to start with you. How are you finding just overall the state of tank?
Honestly, with the new patch, I feel like the armor changes makes a big difference for half the tanks, but then the other half, I still feel like are really weak since the 20% DPS change, like where the heals are less. Ever since that patch, it kind of feels like you're playing more to not take damage, like to out-sustain the other tank rather than doing stuff. And obviously that'll never feel good, so I think that's kind of the issue with it right now, but the armor was like a good step in the right direction. Maybe they'd have to change some heroes. Like I think Zarya and like Doomfist heroes like those that just don't have armor at all are just gonna be really like hard to play. Like how do you play Zarya when the other team has like a Ramatra that has like 800 HP shield and then a slow, so you can't even like walk up to him. It's just really hard, and you have no damage reduction. So I think some of the tanks are like still flawed that don't have armor, but in general, it's good steps in the right direction.
Interesting. I love what you've kind of highlighted there already. We'll mention all of those things, especially when we get to those heroes. But overall, a step in the right direction. Is that a sentiment you concur with? Flats, I'll take it to you next.
Yes and no. I mean, yeah, because the armor does feel better on half the roster. He's right, but at least in my opinion, tank still feels like he just feels like shit. Like no, there's no reason to actually want to play the role. Like you don't play the role for fun. You play the role as a job. Like, like it's just that's just kind of how it is. And I think like before on season 9 when this 20% passive first came out, like tank felt like shit. and then it went to 15, and then all of a sudden we had like Orisa, Malga, and like a bunch of other bullshit. So it was like, well, I'd rather take the 20% and get into play other stuff than just stuck in Malga jail or stuck in Orisa jail. So it's like we had like the two pick your poisons of like, which one do you want? Do you want to get to play other heroes but you don't get to do much, or do you want to play Orisa and Malga and stand there and just like shoot the other tank the entire time? It's like neither experience is a good one. But also it's very weird because I also understand the other perspective of like if you're fighting against tanks, sometimes it feels like you just can't kill them. But if you play as a tank, you either have those games where you're just fucking shit stomping them, or you're getting shit stomped, and it's so polarizing that just it doesn't feel great. So I don't know.
We've been here a few times on the podcast, unfortunately, where that's been the prevailing sentiment. Well, tank feels like shit, feels like a job to play, maybe literally in Flats's case. But here's a man who has opted in to 1,000 games of tank voluntarily. Frito,
Yes.
What's your general sentiment on tank? You surely must be enjoying it somewhat.
Well, okay, I enjoy a lot of things about it, and I hate a lot of things about it. And I think the big part that I want to try to inject into this conversation is the culture of our community, in that the tank blame is unreal, step one, and the lack of like awareness of how to work around different tanks is basically like not even talked about, essentially. It's just like everyone else wants you to swap rather than know how to adjust to the situation to make things work. And that's been, I think, the worst part about it for me. So like, to come back to like how I've entered Overwatch 2, I always gravitate towards the roles people thought were weak. So like when the game launched, I played support because nobody liked it, and I had fast Qs, and I liked that. So I learned that role thoroughly, and then they power crept that role to oblivion, and then my Qs get really long. So I'm like, all right, let me go on to the next thing. And then of course, I came through thinking that the tanks were still strong in many ways, and so I subjected myself to grinding the role as much as possible, and felt behind the curve in a lot of ways, because a lot of things that I think people who've been grinding it the whole time, they know, like, all right, I gotta go Zarya here or Orisa or whatever. I didn't really have that skill set, so my performance on tank is like this. My rank's going up down severely. Okay, way worse than any other role, because I think the other roles fit into Overwatch 2 better. We all agree on that. And part of the, like, I think I would like to try to think of better feedback for us to give the devs, because I feel a lot of it has been lacking. Like, one example for me is just how much better all the other roles can use cover in this game, and how you feel beholden to being cart botted a lot of times. And so therefore your role is kind of like whoever can cart bot or hard int for DPS. And it's tricky because I love the mechanics, actually. Like, the mechanics of the role feel amazing, like when they're working. And then all of a sudden, if they hard counter swap you, or your team's not really using cooldowns on you in ways that I recall not so fondly from Overwatch 1, it's like, well, the team aspect of tank in Overwatch 1 was like, all right, anchor this spot, we're going to dump this cooldown and that cooldown and this cooldown, and then you're going to hold this corner forever, and then you get out. That was tank. Now, everyone's like, well, we're playing a FPS game over here, and you're trying to take over there. Good luck, buddy. Like, that's like the attitude, I feel, of the whole community, and I think we could do a better job, like, upgrading all of our skill set to learn how these matchups actually work, rather than just like blame the tank player for not taking the path of least resistance, which is what I think most of the community wants them to do. So I have mixed emotions about it.
Yeah, again, I think you as well highlighting really interesting points, salient points that I want to get to about the community sentiment. And I think I concur with that like one of the biggest frustrations of tank is how people treat you in the game, not just the gameplay experience. What about you, Bogur? Have you said you kind of play it now and then, it's not your main role as it once was. What is kind of your emotion towards it? Does it drive you away actively, or are you just tired of it?
I just really dislike playing tank a lot, because I feel like playing a few games of tank here and there is usually fun. But as everyone else mentioned, I agree with all of their points. I agree that some games you stomp, but some games, if the enemy team doesn't want you to stomp, they can easily shut you down. It doesn't feel good that you can play really good on tank, and you can even play perfectly, but it might not be enough to win a game, especially in higher ranks. Or if you're lower rank, it's probably the same if you're playing in an equal setting, right? If both teams are equal MMR or rank. And it feels like sometimes you can try to express yourself and you can try to do your best and you can really pop off. But if your team isn't there to support you in certain ways, or sometimes even confirm kills, you might just lose the game because the enemy team has decided to counter swap you and you're forced to swap to something that's less impactful but can survive more. A lot of tank gameplay when I was playing with, it was a meme team after all, with Team Schmungus. Like a lot of the tank gameplay revolved around the tank just not dying and taking the least amount of damage possible. Like Dante said, the armor changes did help against characters that can poke you a lot. I'll be honest, when I'm playing Winston now, it feels a lot better. It feels a lot better against Tracer, against Diva, and everything else. But it just doesn't feel good that my gameplay revolves around me doing nothing most of the time, just to allow my team to do something, because if I take too much damage, then I'm going to force heals, and then I'm going to force resources, and my team will not be able to get kills. But if I'm playing ranked, my team is not going to get kills anyways. I've had a lot of games in GM where I've had 40 or even 50 kills and I still lose the game. It just feels so miserable. And I just dislike the gameplay loop of counter swapping. It tilts me. I know a lot of people are going to defend it. A lot of people have been complaining about it a lot, but I just really despise the entire loop of going in with Winston and then they swap to something else like Malga or Roadhog, and then I can try to play Winston and then I will be forced to swap, and then they'll be forced to swap, and then it's just swapping, and I just don't like that. I when I play other roles like support or something, there is swapping involved, of course, but in ranked, I can play Kiriko 24/7 and not be forced to swap. There's very like little situations where certain characters are bad in. Like Kiriko, you can always play Sojourn, I feel like. You can always play Lucio. I mean, not always, depends on your early support. But you get the idea. With tank, there's a lot of situations where the enemy team can counter swap you and you rely on your team. And if your team doesn't help you, you either swap or you lose the game.
Yeah.
Just go ahead, Tank. You go.
One thing I want to mention, I actually think, while I think like single tank is a reason why the counter swapping is so bad for tanks, I think another reason that people look past completely is the new maps and the new game types. All the new maps and stuff are just like ground tank maps, like completely flat, like very little high ground, and they're just rush maps. Like Lucio will just win on most of those maps. Like you gotta think like all the push ones is just always Lucio favored. New Clash game mode, it seems like it'll be Lucio favored. Flashpoint, you need a Lucio. Just to get the point first, then your holding position, like you get such a big advantage from playing Lucio. It just forces like all the ground rush tanks always be good. Like there's like no Winston on those maps. There's no like high ground. There's no ball. There's none of that really. So I think that's a big issue because then it's either one of those ground tanks is OP like Maga and it's just perma Maga, or it's like one counters one and then the other encounters another. So it's like perma counter game. So I think the map types and the maps themselves are a big reason for counter picking being so strong.
I agree with Dante. I think it's true. We have had very few maps that are actually high ground intensive. I think it's called, I don't know if it's called Parish. I don't think there's one map where you can play Winston, one of the new maps, and it's a hybrid, but I don't remember the map name. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
That is
high ground map
that is the only high ground map they added. So a lot of the map pool is flooded with a lot of good rush maps, and you have like 3 or 4 maps where you can play like Winston Dive or something in competitive and can feel good. Because of those maps, it's very hard to get counter swapped, and I agree with Dante's point.
Yeah, I was making a few notes because you guys have dropped in so many great points and great areas that I want to explore. So I've already noted down that we maybe, Boger's alluding to, maybe it's the most passive role. A lot of like, you just kind of have to do nothing for a long time. It's maybe the most team dependent role, the counter swapping, obviously, and now Dante's bringing up the map. So let's keep going on the maps for now. Flats, I want to take it to you. Is that one of the things that we just don't talk about enough? Because, we've talked about a lot about one tanks and we talked about counter swapping. But is like the map thing actually like a underrated, a slept on reason?
I think it's a great point. I mean, when originally 5v5 was announced into Overwatch 2, like that was one of the big concerns. Like, will the maps feel like kind of like too big, because we were so used to playing the 6v6 of Overwatch 1, And a lot of it was like, oh, like there will be reworks, things will be changed, like there'll be tons of changes. But kind of like the same way, it reminds me almost of like when we went from open queue to roll lock, where like a lot of heroes were supposed to get like changes. We went to 2-2-2, didn't really get them. And so now, honestly, now looking at it, good point. I think the only one that doesn't really stick out like that is maybe like Circle Royale, because of Second Point. But Second Point also sucks to play against, and it's like just sniper heaven. So I almost get worried that if maps would have like tons of high ground. It's like the times we have seen in Overwatch 2, it's just so dominant compared to, I guess, on other maps, right? Like even Dorado is a little bit more manageable than it used to be. But I'd still like for ways to reach Dorado high ground on second without having to either swap heroes or take the long way around. And I think that there's a lot of good points to be made there with maps and forcing those things, because like I don't think of like Gibraltar, right? Like if I'm playing like Winston on Gibraltar, they're not gonna go Roadhog 90% of the time. That's just gonna be kind of troll. But also, I think that there's something to be said about the endless content loop of what Overwatch is. Like now it's a seasonal game in which they're going to try to compete with Valorant, Apex, etc. And they need to come up with new exciting stuff. And they're trying that on all fronts. So it's like their battle pass, their heroes, their maps, what are new game modes. And it's like as they make new game modes, I'm almost wondering, it's like with those new game modes, how do you even make it so something like Push has more high grounds? Because like it's just a straight line bot the entire time. While, I guess like Gibraltar is like a good example. It's like, you're clearing certain sections, but would that work? Like those certain high grounds work if you were fighting back and forth, like if you're going from second to first or from second to third and like going back and forth like that. So like they're kind of almost like putting themselves in a hole with a lot of the game modes to force it to be more brawly. Because I mean, when they went to 5v5 Overwatch 2, they wanted Tank to become like a brawl character. Like that was like the vision. So I wonder if the days of them wanting it to be more of a verticality type game are kind of gone, where it's like that's not even the goal anymore. So that might not, like, it might be one of those things where they're constantly trying to just push forward, and it might work better for old game modes, but those old game modes aren't going to get as many maps anymore because they need to make new game modes and then also make maps for those new game modes. And then there's also certain maps that need changes, so they're like reworking certain maps that were either new in Overwatch 2, like Colosseo, or older maps, say like Dorado, right? They got things that they're trying to look at certain things like, oh, like we got to make this better or make this better. And so I kind of wonder, because they're going to constantly chase that, like we have to have new content always type of deal. They might not even see that as like a problem, that's even fixable.
Yeah, and here's I think that's a really, you're correct to bring up the incentives of the seasonal and the release model as well. But here's another thing that, in defense of the devs, and Frida, I want you to kind of respond to this, which is that the other thing about the high ground maps is, well, Dante is absolutely correct, I think, in that we've kind of been in this brawl low ground tank situation. People also tend to dislike a lot the high ground maps. Like the maps that people really hate are the ones that people can set up on oppressive high ground. And the devs will have said, well, we are just making maps based off what you guys like. You guys love King's Row. Well, King's Row is largely just like a linear map down one path, and there's a little bit of high ground here and there, but mostly it's not very oppressive. And Parisu, for example, Circuit Royale, the maps that do have high ground, they get a lot of complaints. So is it like a pick your poison? Like we have to choose one or the other? Like, how do you view it?
Oh, sorry, I'm just receiving the impact of you saying, like, now to get a guy to defend the devs, let's throw Frito under the bus to do this, because this always goes well for me. So I was thinking back to Overwatch 1 as well, because I feel like what they did was the opposite of the gameplay map design that they had in 1, because so much of it was choke heavy, right? And we hated that. We hated chokes. Chokes are the worst possible thing. Funnily enough, makes tanks really strong, because if your tanks can move their tanks out of the way, oh my god, free space, instant win. And I think it kind of goes to what has been said in the conversation already, and something that I also think is a bit of a misconception in our community, where the snowballing team, the tank stats, you hold tab and it's like the tank's got whatever limbs, right? Because tanks in general farm up eliminations on whatever you can clean up, because they're the best at like finishing a fight when you already have the advantage. And so we're dealing with a lot of these problems all at the same time, where what I was kind of saying earlier is about tank design as well, where I'm starting to notice just how like particular my positioning has to be, where other roles don't seem to have to follow those rules, because they either have ways to self-sustain their position or insane mobility and small hitboxes to more easily navigate the map. Whereas in any map you can think of in Overwatch 2, the viable tank positions are so punishing and small and minute, and it's like you just step out a little bit, and especially now with the big hitboxes, it's like something randomly hits you and pokes you off the head. So I don't know if I really have a good answer to your question, but like the map design certainly hurts things. It's like a multitude problem, where they went so far in the other direction, where it's compounding how many things make it difficult. So to try to counterbalance that, they give you more abilities on the tank character, but they don't necessarily like suit the game so much. Like it would be kind of different if one of them, like think of how many abilities we would never even consider to exist in the tank role that are in other roles, like we have Hog. I was going to say Widowmaker, but I guess we have Hog and everybody hates that, or like Kariko or something like this. Like imagine if we had a tank that had a small hitbox that could teleport across the map. That would be ridiculous, right? Like we would never even consider that. So I struggle to contribute to this conversation so much, because I'm trying to figure out what we could even say that would help it in any way, rather than just be like, well, all of this hurts when I'm that guy trying to navigate all of this. And to the other degree, I think there's power to be gained when you do counterpick. So it's like we usually say it from the context of like, well, I'm on a hero and the enemy counterpicks me, but you have the opportunity to do that as well. And if the enemy doesn't, like, there's a lot of harsh combat with this. And to that issue, I hope we can maybe expand on a little bit more, SV. But like, I feel this podcast years ago, with you leading the charge on it, like the combating the free swap format, like it was an issue in Overwatch 1 as well. Like, you know, I believe you were like, well, what if we tried hero lock? And they're like, boo, SVB, terrible idea. Hero lock. And then now we're years later, we're in this world where counterpicking is like the game they almost always wanted to create, seemingly, right? Because we felt it wasn't very strong in the first game for all the reasons, mainly because you could control the map with the two viable tanks, and you wouldn't dare pick other things that weren't good to clear through the map. There was no like, well, the enemy's got double bubble on Anubis, and you got to clear through a choke. Try doing that with Hog Diva. Good luck. Like it's just, you wouldn't pick bad tanks, or if you try to go Ryan there, you would just get farmed. Like there's a lot of ways to get farmed so badly on the bad tanks in the first game that I feel you wouldn't even have attempted them. Whereas I think in Overwatch 2, the game's like more open in a way, so you can get trapped into thinking you can do things that then, whoop, they swap it, now you can't. And the free swap system, I've always said, what I used to call it, like free pick in Dota. I've never been a huge fan of the free pick format. Like I think it's casual in nature, and we're really like receiving the brunt of just how casual it is when you can, in the middle of a match, swap to an entirely different kit that utterly rolls all of your strategy, and you have to like think, will my random teammates also swap to make? Nope, they're not going to. Shit, I'm just screwed now. The next 8 minutes of my life are going to be horrible if I don't learn a new hero or something. And that's what I've been doing in the role, is trying to like learn a lot of heroes that I didn't know, because turns out can't just play Ram all the time. I'm not good enough to do that. Like there's certain tanks that can be counterpicked, and there's other ones that are just sort of like I'll sustain, like as Bogur said, like ones that are just trying to live. All right. Okay. There's my little spiel. Go.
Yeah, no, I appreciate this, because the great thing about this is that you guys have all got so much experience, so many valuable insights. It's gonna be my job, and I've let us the scene be set. We're 20 minutes in. You guys have given some great points already. Now I'm gonna start being a little bit ruthless. I'm gonna start pinging between you guys back and forth. I'm gonna start cutting you off, so nothing personal. But I want to make sure we talk through each of the relevant points and we kind of get through all the major things. So I actually just before we move on to the next discussion point, Danteh, I want to bring it back to you because you brought the point of maps up, and I want to bring my question to you as well, which is that, and I really appreciate Frida's POV of saying let's try and be constructive, let's try and offer something helpful to the devs rather than just complaining and saying we don't like this. What's the constructive feedback we can offer in turn? So you kind of alluded to, well, a lot of the new maps are very low ground, brawler tank centric. Are you actually fine with it? Like you've kind of alluded to, that's why the counter swapping is bad. Do you actually think it's a problem for the game? And if so, how would you address it?
Yeah, I mean, I think it is a problem because maps like push and stuff is I think Flats mentioned it, but like how do you even add high grounds to those ones when it's just like a hard clash all the time? Like it's always like so brawly and stuff. It's kind of weird to add high grounds. Like a lot of Koth are like mostly flat. I guess you can add high grounds and stuff, but it is very hard to do it. So I think it is an issue with the map types. This is a hot take, but I actually think 2CP would be fun to have back in Overwatch too. I'm not even joking because I feel like there's a lot of comp diversity on the maps. Like Anubis, you have like these heroes that like are just like never played that are just really good.
Have you played 2CP recently?
No, I haven't played on Overwatch 2.
I played a few games in Overwatch 2. It was miserable. I don't know. I don't like this speed. Maybe it's a personal preference, but I think that's cope. I don't know, Danteh.
Was that a arcade? Did you play? Because that was obviously open queue. Was it like a proper role lock?
It was a competitive thing. I played 2CP with competitive settings, and it was really miserable. And it's just holding chokes, and there's one way to go through. I would agree if my biggest gripe with 2CP is just a single choke or two chokes or like that. If they make more ways to enter, maybe. But because of the way the maps are and how linear it is, you just need to brute force your way through, and it's really annoying and it's really miserable. If they rework 2CP, maybe then, but not in the state that it was before.
Okay, I'm gonna let Danteh finish his point now. Go ahead, Danteh.
Yeah, I agree. I think the map designs, like, I mean, they're obviously for Overwatch 1, like, they're all like hard chokes and stuff. But I think the thing that made 2CP unique is like you have to pick like a backline that's gonna survive. Like, if your backline gets traded, like, game is done. You can't win. But all these comps, like the rush comps, like they play for trades. Like you want to trade and stuff. So I think it would introduce a lot of good variety to the metas and stuff. Especially when you have maps like Anubis that are just like they're like echo maps or they're Junkrat maps. I don't know. The new maps don't really have much comp variety. It's always just OP ground tank, Lucio, and hit scan. Those three are like a lock. If you don't have those, it's just hard. But I mean, it doesn't even need to be 2CP. Just like another game mode where these like 3 core heroes aren't insta lock, and I think that would help a lot. I was just giving 2CP because it's like low-key kind of miss 2CP.
You know what? I was wondering if we would go into some nostalgia Overwatch discussions, but I wasn't expecting the 2CP comeback. So I love it. We're already getting hot takes. Frito's coming.
What is his favorite? What is your favorite 2CP map?
Volskaya.
Oh, same. Okay. If they bring back Volskaya, I'll be happy. I'll be fine with that.
Winston enjoyer right there. Okay, so we've already got Frito saying let's bring in some hero locks. That's something I'm a big fan of. Danteh saying bring back 2CP. Flats, while we're on the map discussion, any hot takes you want to drop?
I don't think I can physically top either of those. So like
Well, you can go back to your Overwatch 3 4v4 take. Let's go Overwatch 3.
Yeah, that was never serious. Let's just throw that out there. That was like a more of a meme. Like we should try it just to see what happens, you know?
Yeah, we're trolling. I mean, it wouldn't be a group up episode without the hot takes being thrown. Avril is somewhere probably watching, saying his delete tank hot take was like, you know what, just fucking delete tank. Let's just make them DPS and then that'll make us all happy. Okay, so we've kind of gone through the map thing now. I want to go back to, again, some of these bigger picture points before we discuss the nitty gritty of each of the tanks. I want to go back to the idea of the community sentiment. I think this is something that a lot of the players will feel, like a lot of the people listening. And I feel this is that I think for me, the most miserable part of playing tank is the behavior of the people around me, namely my teammates, namely the tank diffs relentlessly, namely the complete reluctance to swap to anything to help me, or even when I'm swapping, they won't swap and they'll obstinately run like the dumbest comp to pair with my tank. And is there something we can do about that? And B, is that one of the bigger frustrations with tank? I'm gonna go to Bogur. Bogur, how do you view the community's response to the role of tank?
The community responds to the role of tank. You play perfectly. Nobody says thank you. You make one mistake, the game is over. You get slurred, get flamed, get added, get whatever. I hate playing tank because there's so much on top of you, on your shoulders. It's if you make one mistake on tank, a lot of games, especially in top 500, you just lose the entire match. It's really annoying because if you misplace your bubble or do a jump wrong on Winston, for example, or Junker Queen shout too early or too late, then it's on cooldown for, I don't know, 12 seconds or something. Then they push you and you die and you lose. You make one mistake, you lose. But even if you play well, you're still gonna get blamed. And a lot of the games, even like, at least if there was a lot of, I don't like to say it, but like a lot of games feel like you don't really have much skill expression in ranked when you're playing tank, because as we said before, it's a lot of just staying alive and just doing, enough to not die, but at the same time to carry. And if you do that and you don't die, and the enemy team does their thing and like their DPS pops off better and you lose the game, it's your fault. But I just, the community always likes to blame the tank, and it's really annoying and it's really stressful. I played 1,000 games on Life Fever. The stress I experienced playing one day tank is tenfold to Life Fever. It is insane. This is one of the main reasons why I hate playing tank. It is so stressful, and especially if you play it every single day, you get burnt out so hard. And at least when you play in a team environment, it is still really stressful, but at least you know that you can depend on your team. In ranked, you have some guy called Big Chungus 6, and his DPS do Bonafide 7, and they have Simp Junkrat, goes 0 and 7 both, and then they flame you for no space. And there's always something to flame about. Oh, the tank isn't doing enough damage, not enough kills, not enough space, dies too much, does this. I hate it. I just hate it so much. Either way, yeah.
Yeah,
So I can see Danteh. Yeah, Danteh, want to chime in? Go ahead.
Yeah, I think a big issue is you have so many like as a solo tank, you have so many responsibilities. Like you have to be in the front line. You also have to like help teammates and stuff. If you're on like a tank like Zarya and stuff, like you have to think about, like, it's so hard to think about bubbling teammates when you have like 5 people in the front shooting at you, and you also have to think about like the swaps and stuff. And you also have to think about your team's comp. Like you have to think about, oh, we're playing like on a brig. Okay, I need to play something that's good with on a brig because like Arista's just not gonna feel good. And then you need to think about their tanks, and you're like, oh well, they're playing Maga, so I can't play half the tanks. And they're like, oh, well, they have a Zen, so like I need to play a dive. And it makes it like really tricky for swapping and stuff, because it's just constantly like one person changes, like they switch Bastion, you have to swap your tank immediately. So it gives you have so many responsibilities on top of like needing to swap all the time, and then all your mistakes. Like you're playing against a Bastion, you press shift wrong once on like any dive hero, you're dead. You're playing against a Maga, like one mistake, you're dead, and then your team can't win that fight. Like I remember my gladiators coach, he'd be like, Danteh, how can we win if you do this? Like I made one mistake. It's like, well, that's true. Like they just snowballed Coliseum and now they have the checkpoint, and like they're all holding forward. Like we have to work so hard. It's really hard. It's difficult, and there's like no one to catch up the slack of this solo tank. So
Flats, I mean, I'm kind of teeing you up here. I'm sure you'll love this question, but I think people don't appreciate perhaps these elements of tank, right? Like when they talk about tank, and I like, it's funny. The other day I was streaming some tank, and I wasn't even complaining about tank. I was complaining about voice chat. I was just like, man, voice chat, people just never say anything productive in voice chat. Like every time there's in, or even team chat, match chat, everything. The only thing people say is whining and complaining. Like we would be fine without it. And some guy came to my Twitch chat and he's like, how are you gonna complain when you're playing the easiest role? And I was like, firstly, I'm not even talking about the gameplay. I'm talking about fucking voice chat. And then secondly, I was like, what are you smoking when you think the tank is the easiest role? And I feel like a lot of people underestimate these aspects. Like, it's not just what's happening in front of you, but it's all these 10 things that, I mean, do you think the other roles also have to contend with this kind of stuff, or is it particularly heightened on tank?
Of course, it's heightened on tank. I mean, I brought this example up like a while ago on the podcast, but not everyone obviously was here for it. But I think when season 9 came out, I saw Tens come play some Overwatch, and it was like me and Karq. We were like shooting the shit at night. We had some stuff we had to talk about, so we're just like we were in Discord, and I was like, "Oh, Tens playing Overwatch." And I opened up his stream, and he's playing. You know, he's like in Masters. He's just his positionings are fucking terrible, but like he hits every shot. Like he just constant headshots, but like he's just walking around the middle of like Ilios like lighthouse, like on the low ground by himself. I'm like, okay, like interesting decision in like Masters. And I was like, man, this gameplay is just like so relaxing. Just watching him walk around, just click heads, like nothing. And he was like, Kark's like, what do you mean? I was like, oh, my gameplay doesn't look like this. And Kark's like, mine does. I'm like, what are you talking about? My gameplay looks like I'm fighting in World War III. And it's actually kind of insane, the amount of pressure that is applied at all times, that it's like, it's not only like not fun, but it's like kind of scary, you know? And you know, one of the greatest things I loved about the streamer mode being added is I never really get flamed that much anymore. Because like it was always like, oh, flats this, flats that. But like now, if you get flamed in games, just like, oh, for like tank issues or whatever happened. But then you also get games where I had a game yesterday where they had a Rhine, and I ended up playing Rhine too, just versus them, and they played Bash and Zen, and they had a strat in which the Rhine would try to pin me every fight. And then the point of the pin was to then get the Discord on me and then bash and pop shift. And by the time I stood up, I was dead. And we wouldn't swap Kiri, and the BAP lamp wasn't enough. And it was just like, there was two options. And like, I ended up just taking the pin sometimes to try to like force them out of position and force like maybe a trade and maybe survive it. And it's like, I literally have to sit there and like take the loss because the option of taking the counter pin will kill me every single time. And it's like, wait a minute, my choices here is to actually get pinned to a fucking wall and hope that I get saved versus actually trying to make some gameplay decisions. And that's the easiest role in the game. That seems like the like worst decisions that you have to make. It's like, well, you can almost die or you have like a chance of guaranteed death. And it's like, which one would you like? And it's like, those both suck. I want to play the game. I want to have a chance to do something. But then again, to your point about people in voice chat, sorry, I strayed away a little bit too much. I think people are just fucking stupid and they don't know their shit 90% of the time. And you always get some fuck that whines and just like starts typing some shit and says like, oh, like we don't have space, or oh, we need to do this. And it's like, dude, what are you talking about? Like, one, we can't do that because we don't have the right comp for it, or two, we can't do that because like their Widow hits 3 shots every fight. Like it literally doesn't matter if I walk up like any further, or and it's like I can't walk up any further because I'm going to take too much damage. If I take too much damage, then I require too many resources. So it's better for me to chill 90% of the time. But then like if you're getting smoked in your DPS 1v1 every fight, I can't help you. Like, because if I go to help you, then I play super aggressive, I will get smoked. And it's like, we can do that. We can do the all-in strat, but you have to swap with me. And like 90% of the time they won't do that. So it's just your fault. Go fuck yourself. And it's like, okay, it's my fault if we it's my fault if we lose. It's because of you if we win. That's dog shit.
Yeah.
I want to take the Frida, but I want to take it. I want to let Danteh, because I can see you shifting in your seat. You got something to say, Danteh. So I'm gonna let you go, and then I'm gonna take it to Frida.
Okay. One issue that I think with tank is it's so team dependent, and the other roles aren't so much. I mean, I guess support is, but DPS specifically, like if your team's playing bad DPS, you just boom, 2 shots, someone's dead. Like you're playing hitscan, boom, do that. You're playing tracer, pulse bomb, dead. Even like supports, like you're playing Kiriko, you go for a flank, you can like easily make like a solo kill yourself. But tank, like most of the tanks, you just can't do that. And when the tanks are like that, you can actually have these impacts and like get these kills and stuff. Like Orisa strong, insta nerfed. Like Doom strong, insta nerfed. Like the heroes that can actually kill well, people don't like playing against them because it's like no one likes playing against a 700 HP tank that can actually kill. So I think that's one reason why it feels like so bad when you're losing and stuff. But I don't know. There's not really a good solution because it's like you can't have these god tanks that just like do a bunch of damage and stuff. But it feels bad for tanks when you're so team dependent. So yeah, I don't know what the answer is.
Frito, I feel like you're someone who's good at coming up with some idea. Not that there's necessarily an easy solution, but I feel like you're always someone with some great ideas on where to pinpoint the problems. So what is your response to all of this?
Focus the subject matter before I mention 10 things.
Okay, so there, yeah. Well, let's say that I'll let you pick one of these. Go off on one of these. One is the community center. You brought this up first, which you were like, I think the most frustrating thing about playing tank is how people treat the tank player in the team, and also the enemy team counter swapping you. So either choose that or choose what Danteh just said, which is that one other frustration of tank is maybe you're the least capable of turning things around when your team isn't coming together. Like, and we've all been in those games where this team just isn't working, and you just whatever you try is gonna get shut down. Unlike perhaps what a supporter DPS can do, where they have the power to go get a kill, but with most tanks you can't just go off and get a kill because everyone's looking at you trying to stop you anyways. So pick one of those two. Which one do you want to go down?
Yeah, I think all right. First, I'll say like this. I think there's a bit of a benefit and downside to the way we talk about the game in our community now. Like in Overwatch 1, there was a lot of skepticism to high-level player opinion, and in many ways I felt I had to facilitate that and say, no, casuals, you don't actually know what you're talking about. Let's see what the top players think. Now I feel the culture is kind of flipped to the opposite, where players that are really high ranked will explain things from their point of view, which is true for them, and then the rest of the community just assumes that applies to them as well, which I think is not true at all. Like, if you're in like a medium tier rank and you think it's all of your teammates' fault, I'll explain how I went through this. There's a character on the cast that I didn't play for the entirety of Overwatch 2. And I'm pretty good at characters like Ram or Roadhog, who's overtuned obviously now. And I was struggling with a lot of things. And then my chat kept telling me, well, you got to learn this character. And then one day I dropped enough rank to be like, fine, we're just going to push the button. I'm going to start playing Doomfist. Holy fuck. This Doomfist is a character, like, if pigs could fly, if Roadhog could fly, that's what Doomfist feels like against people who don't know how to counter Doomfist. The speed and aggression and positioning and the combos, and like, oh, wait, hold on, I didn't even know. He gets his punch back after he gets a block. Holy shit! And then insta killing and boom, and taking over the entire game. The problem with tank balance is there's characters like that in the role that then all of a sudden instantly fall off as soon as anybody knows how to position or counterpick or do anything, basically. Like, so it's problematic because the reality is, like, the skill expression of some of the tanks is insane. Like, if you're sick at Queen or Hog or whatever, you can take your pick of any of these. And then when we listen to the top tier players play, they're like, well, I'm useless because the way that everyone is positioning and holding their space and crossfiring and not making mistakes. Like, tanks are good at punishing mistakes in this game, but they're not good like they were in Overwatch 1. They were good at Overwatch 1 at taking space. And like, you could feel like you could manipulate the fight and force the positioning. It's way harder to do that. You can kind of do it on like dive maps and things like that, but like, it just happens less often. All right. So instead, the game we're actually playing, what I wish the community would do is learn the matchups better. So while it is true that on the squishy roles in ranked, you can choose to just like dedicate to your role and play it a bit better. But what I wish we would do as a community is learn how to swap to help our tank, because tank players are struggling out there in that they got to learn so many more heroes than the other roles just by like base point, right? Like there's just a base function as a tank player, in my opinion. And it would be better if the rest of the community learned like how important it is to give them that Suzu or whatever. I don't even think this necessarily was the case in Overwatch 1 either. People like remember as if it was, but you would equally be screwed in a Rhine mirror if you had a Ball or Hog and they had a Zarya. Like, you fundamentally had to play it entirely different. And I'm confused why we don't like try to incentivize or teach the community of like, well, listen, you can never expect your Doomfist to succeed if you don't set up a pincer with a dive character or play Kiri. Like, if you want to play Alari Mercy or Alari Bap or something like this, and your tank wants to dive, it's like you should expect that to not work. But I feel like the entire community just like expects everyone else to learn the game, and they're doing fine. Like, that's the vibe I get, which I think is just, I don't know necessarily how to fix it other than, you know, explaining these things, making educational content. Like, I don't know. I feel like at a loss. Like, I having deja vu a little bit because the same things happened in Overwatch 1 in many ways. It just like panned out differently. Not sure if I answered the question well enough.
No,
those are my feelings on it anyway.
No, it's a good point. I think you know, nothing fills me with more dread when I lock in tank and the first thing I see on the hero select screen is people pick Iliari Mercy or Mercy Lifeweaver or something, and I'm like, well, I guess I'm just extra AFK today then. Okay, gotcha. I want to take it to Bogur. Bogur, is there something the devs can do to alleviate this? Because I think at the end of the day, we know that content creators, we can, Frito's noble to try and educate the community there, but I think at the end of the day, the reach of a content creator is very low. Like at the end of the day, like the majority of the people playing are not watching any of us, and they're just kind of doing their own thing. Is there anything that the devs can do to alleviate this problem? It's just like people not quite understanding what the role of their tank is and how they can help them, or is this just going to be, because every game has like a core problem the community never solves, and is this Overwatch's core problem? Like people just won't figure this out. It's going to blame their tank.
I think you can go two ways with it. I think first and foremost, I feel like if every other role can be so self-sufficient, depending on the character, of course, there's some characters that don't work that way. But for example, in DPS, you don't really need your team when playing Tracer, for example, right? You can just, you might want to get some healing here and there, but you can play around packs. Whenever you play support, when you play Kiriko, you don't really need your team. It's good to have team play, but you can do stuff by your own. Tank is really team-oriented, right? As we mentioned before, the tank you choose is purely based off of your team comp a lot of the times. It's really bad to play a rush tank if you don't have a Lucio. It's really bad to play Winston if you don't have enough heals. It's really bad to play, this or that when you don't have your DPS following up. So maybe one of the solutions we could go for is to make the tank role be less team reliant in one way or another. I don't know what exactly they can do to make it less team reliant, because the issue with making it less team reliant is that it might just break the row and make it way too OP. It's really hard to balance tank, in my opinion. I think you have the scales, right? And you want it to be balanced and you want it to be fun all the time. But if you go one way too far, it gets really oppressive and really broken. And tank becomes a 700 HP DPS. And that never feels good to play against. And the other thing is that if you go the other way and you nerf it, then it gets really boring and you just stay alive all the time and you take a lot of damage. So I think it's really hard to balance it out. I think in general, if we just don't think about Overwatch for a second, I think in every game, probably the tank row is the most miserable. Or maybe, no, actually, I think support and tank is obviously the most miserable, because in MOBA support is really bad. Either way, doesn't matter. I digress. But my point is, it's really hard to balance it. And I think you can't really do anything in game to make your team put more resources into you and support you because you're so important. Because at the end of the day, everyone has their free will, and people want to spend their resources on themselves to get more kills and feel better and have more fun. Maybe introduce some mechanics that reward you when you help your tank out or something of that sort, But I don't know. I think it's a difficult issue. I don't really have anything specific.
Oh yeah, go ahead, Flats. Go ahead.
I have my hot take finally. I'm ready.
Perfect.
Okay.
Perfect. I was going to just ask towards this, so go ahead.
Did we lean too hard into the FPS side of Overwatch over MOBA side of Overwatch again? Because listen, I understand that it is an FPS game, but it's also never been a true FPS game. It's not a Valorant, it's not a COD, it's not an XDefiant, it's not a CS. Tank and support have always dictated how this game has worked. Other than like very small niches where like certain heroes like Widow or Tracer or something is like kind of dominating until Overwatch 2. And then it was like a lot of Sojourn and a lot of Tracer. And I mean, like obviously tanks still define like most people look at comps around like what tanks you're playing against to what support you're playing. But like as Danteh was saying earlier, you can take the game in your hand. Like if you're like extremely skilled DPS player, and it happens always when like you randomly get on and like Happy's just like playing or some shit, and like the entire lobby starts dying. You're like, is that guy cheating? Like, what the fuck is going on over there? And it's like, because we've leaned so hard into the FPS side again, and DPS is like super strong, like with the DPS with passive especially, because like even in season 8 where like the healing was like you felt like you couldn't kill anything. That's still where healing is today, but it doesn't feel that way because the DPS passive's there. So if you're a tank player and you're shooting somebody by yourself and they get healed, you are not fucking killing them. It's just 0% chance. But if there's DPS joins in at all, they just disappear. So it's like you need to have that teamwork. And it's like that teamwork 99% of the time in ranked, like pro play is very different, but in ranked, it's just never going to happen. And so like those FPS players, like those people who have like really good mechanics or do whatever, like they kind of pop off, even if like they're not that good. And I know like there's extreme, like obviously if you take it like to the super extreme, like you get those games with a guy who's like fucking cheating, right? Like, and they're just the worst player of all time. Like they are just a fucking bot. And I had one the other day, and this guy, like I beginning the game, like I killed him 4 times in a row, and Ryan was playing Cass. I'm like, this guy is a fucking bot. And it comes back on Widow and kills 4 in a row, and I go, that's interesting. And they were rage hacking at that point, but it's like they were able to come back and take over the game so quick. And it's like, wait a minute, hang on. Like in Overwatch 1, if someone was hard cheating in a game, yeah, it was annoying, but like you could fucking beat them. It wasn't that tough. Like you just sit on their head with like Winston Diva or like Ball Diva or Ball Winston or something like that, and you could just absolutely annihilate them. That doesn't happen anymore. You just lose, period. And so my idea is that if Overwatch maybe did lean back into the more aspect of the other roles shouldn't be self-sufficient as much anymore. It should all play together almost like a MOBA again. Not totally. I'm not saying to go full MOBA. I'm saying like FPS MOBA, what Overwatch originally was. Because otherwise, tank just doesn't make sense because it's an unbalanceable role in almost every game. Tank is always a struggle. Even in like World of Warcraft, like people, they struggle with balancing tanks. So it's like by leaning more into the FPS side, it doesn't make sense to have a tank in Call of Duty. That's called a juggernaut. So, you know, I don't really know what they could do about it, but just a passing thought.
I have an idea while listening to Flat's rant. I just want to add something.
Yes. Let me just set the scene here because I really appreciate what Flat's doing, and he's kind of read my mind a little bit before he went off. Here's what I was gonna say. I was gonna say we're gonna turn this into an ideas session now, guys, and we're gonna turn it into a safe space where I'm gonna ask each of you to just drop your most unhinged, hottest take possible. What we would call the break the glass, right? Like last time when Avra was on, he called his his delete tanks role. This is the break the glass. And every time he comes on, he comes with I've got a new break the glass solution, in case of emergency, smash, tear it up from the ground up. And too often, we know this as content creators, too many people respond with hate and negativity. Immediately when a new idea comes up, people are like, shut the fuck up, you're an idiot, that would never work. Poor Danteh's like, hey guys, how about 2CP? Bogur shoves down his throat. He's like, shut the fuck up, Danteh, you don't know what you're talking about. It would be terrible. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna try and be encouraging. We're gonna try and listen to each other's wild takes. And of course, if you disagree massively, feel free to disagree. But I want you to come with the attitude of entertaining these ideas. Let's just run with this thought experiment for a while. And then it's the devs' problem to figure out what the problems with it are. Or I'm sure the comment section and Twitch chat will very easily and readily inform us what the problems with our takes are. But here on this call, let's try and encourage each other's wild takes. So, Bogur, go ahead and say what you're going to say, but in general, I want you guys to try and humor Flats' take.
I don't have a hot take yet. I had just an idea. I was just thinking about the fact that maybe the main issue right now is that so many characters do so many things at once. Like, for example, a lot of the new characters, instead of focusing on one aspect. For example, Life Fever, he's really good at supporting his team, he's really good at healing, he's really good at surviving, but he's mostly really passive. While Kiryu can do everything at once, which means she doesn't need to rely on her tank to do anything, because she can just do most of those things by herself. And my point is, what if it's just an issue with hero design? Even though the characters are really fun to play, when you're playing them by yourself, they don't rely on your team. And when you don't rely on your teammates, it creates this issue where you don't have to ever support your tank. And then if you don't support your tank, obviously your tank will have issues and get, screwed over. So my addition to what was going on before that is that maybe a lot of characters are just too self-sufficient right now. And it just makes it so that they don't need to, help each other. There's no, equilibrium between the characters and the roles. Either way. I don't have a hot take for now. I'll think about it.
Yeah, cook while we respond to Flash.
That one's warm though. That's a warm take, I think.
Yeah, and I wanna give it to Frito in a second because I could see his mind churning there visibly. I could see it. But first, I want to go to Dante. Dante's very good at being succinct with his thoughts, I think, which is like the opposite of me and Frito. We're the opposite. So Dante, how do you feel about what Flash has said? Do you think Overwatch has gone too far in the FPS side?
Yeah, kinda. I think it's kind of it's necessary that they did just because of how 5v5 is. Especially with having hero like there's no heroes that are good at just enabling heroes, like no team play heroes. It's like all like do it yourself heroes. But I feel like when you have tank the way it is, you can't really have that. Like you look at Diva, for example, it's like, wow, how do you play Diva versus like most of the tanks in the game? You just can't. Like Diva was made to like enable your team and stuff. And when you have a Diva in the field, there's like a huge frontline presence gap. Like it feels impossible for you to play against like these frontline tanks and stuff. And when you play ball and stuff, it's like their frontline tank, their Ramatra is like blocking like 3 people, and your ball is getting chased by 3 people. So like you have these heroes that like these non-brawl heroes just don't really have a place in Overwatch 2. So it feels really hard to have the MOBA side come back from a tank perspective at least. I don't know what kind of tanks would be good at enabling team. Like even Zarya, it's like you're not really bubbling your team much. I guess you bubble Genji when you have Genji and stuff, but that's like the only hero that's good at taking bubbles. Like you're not like turning looking at your people bubbling, because if you're turning looking at your people bubbling, there's 5 people shooting you, so it's like, or 4 people because you're probably bubbling 1 person. But it makes it really tricky. I don't know how to go away from an FPS and get like more MOBA functions from the tank POV at least. So
Well, I mean, both Flats and Bogur alluded to, well, let's take some of the self-sustainability, self-reliability of these other roles out a little bit, because we've added the healing passive. We've given a lot. Like we forget, I guess it's easy to forget over the course of Overwatch 2 how much support has changed. Because back then, the launch, everyone was mad about how little supports could do. Like, oh, I'm just falling over on paper. But maybe Flats is, I'm sure the support players will not be happy. Don't worry, support players. We'll get to a great support debate, and you guys can hate on the tank players then. But right now, maybe Flats is right. Maybe we need to go back to where supports were a little bit more squishy. Any final thoughts on that, Dante, before I take it over to Frito to cook?
yeah, make supports bad. I like
Make
that.
supports bad again.
I
There
like
you go.
that.
There's a campaign
Fun.
slogan. Make supports bad again. Frito, this idea of have we gone too far down the FPS train?
Not for me personally, but I see why any diehard Overwatch player can feel that way. I mean, I just recently made an epic long video, kind of my months long waiting response to the debates me and Samito have had, and probably requiring another great debate about that, either with me and him separately or on this show. I don't know, but I think that's like the best way to frame it, of like if you preferred more of the game to be about MOBA cooldowns and teamwork, or if you want aim and FPS mechanics to matter more. I mean, like, it's interesting. It's, Flats explained, wow, when someone was hacking in Overwatch 1, it kind of just didn't even matter. I mean, like, we had 2 tanks in the way, and they weren't oppressive, of course. Like we would still win, obviously, because tank gameplay wasn't oppressive. And wait, hold on a second. Let me do the math on that. So if a DPS is hacking, you barely even notice them. So to me, that's like nails on a chalkboard. Like, hold on a second. Then you're not even
with shit, not because like they're.
I hear you. But the strength of even what I'm saying is the mechanics are so irrelevant to winning the game, like the positioning battle. So yes, exactly. Their positioning matters so much more than their output as an FPS player. And think of all of the free-to-play players that we gained. Let's try to remember for a second. When Overwatch 2 launched, every single new player who did not play Overwatch 1, basically all of them were Bronze 5. As in, the matchmaker tried to place them around and see where they could go. They didn't intentionally drop them down there. There was a problem where there's too many of them, separate issue. But in general, because of the Overwatch fundamentals of regrouping with your team or ult stacking, when should we die as a player, right? Like that doesn't exist in other games. Like die earlier to regroup with your team. That's like not even really a thing, other than maybe Team Fortress, which is super old, I guess, by this point. But like the fundamentals of Overwatch are so foreign to new players that like this is where I come down on it, where I don't think you would get a free-to-play audience necessarily to adapt to the MOBA elements that we accepted over time. And I think there's also like other arguments about like how the dev team designed Overwatch 1, and the truth is they didn't design it to be 222. That was like a happenstance by accident based on what was viable at the highest tiers of play. But if you look at the things the devs actually said, it was like, well, we thought you'd have one tank maybe, and good luck. Like there was no design for the competitive aspects of the game. That's something that happened. The community gave it feedback, and then they tried to adjust to it later. And I think, you know, the history of Overwatch 1, a lot of Overwatch 1 in my brain from the past weeks of this. Sure. We get a lot of this probably from me today. But a lot of that was just to like maximize the fantasy. And that's how we got heroes like that were MOBA designed. Valk 1.0, Brig 1.0, like, you know, Jeff comes out there, you know, smiling with a shit-eating grin, like, hey guys, we got this great idea. Mercy, she's gonna res 3 times in a row and fly and can't be hit. Isn't that great? MOBA design. It's wonderful. It's like, well, so we've had both ends of the spectrum now, I think. And I would agree that we can get it like closer to the middle. And I've said a lot responding to everyone. We're supposed to be like giving hot takes and stuff. I think like I never got a chance to say like I did like 2CP as well. Playing it personally because I like strategy and I like asymmetrical team comps, where that was the one game mode where I felt bunker was okay to be seen. As in, if double shield was getting played on other maps, it's like, oh god, this is terrible. I don't want to play against this. But going against an Orisa on Anubis, like it made sense. It's like she was like designed to fit on that map. And as long as she's not oppressive, it's like you could run things that were interesting into that. And I think we have to like be reasonable with what we should expect this game to produce. And if we're going to have this like more straightforward objective style where the modes are kind of simple and just jump on point, fight together, the characters that are going to be good at that are going to be kind of obvious. Like we should know what to expect basically. And I don't know. Like it's really difficult to please everyone in this regard.
Can I ask something? Where did you get the game wasn't designed for 222? Like you said that like they thought one tank. Good
Jeff
luck.
Kaplan
like,
said it many times.
You have that like somewhere? Because I don't remember that.
Lots of forum posts.
If you can find one later and just show me, I'd be interested.
Well, yeah. Well, like when he talked about like designing tanks, and the struggles that they had trying to understand. Because I think also a thing we like take for granted now that when we look back, like, well, you could just invent Junker Queen or well, like what's a tank? DPS Doom, a tank Doom maybe? Like what are tanks that aren't shield tanks that people like in Overwatch 2? Like that's what I'm trying to come up with. I think most people like Junker Queen, right? Like
yeah.
That's not a design they ever would have considered for Overwatch 1 because they knew the player base felt like they wanted to be behind a shield tank. That's why we got Bunker Orisa. And why she was designed in that way. And they admitted, we don't know how to make Reinhardt again. Like they didn't know what to do. So losing that, they're trying to like add all of these shout-based tanks or shooter-based tanks. And maybe we can retroactively say they could have just released the reins on that expectation where tanks have to be facilitators. But they didn't know that at the time. And so to cite this, I mean, like, here's the thing. I think I come across this often because a lot of people when talking about Overwatch 1 and the design philosophy, they don't realize just how specific me personally I was at following every single thing these guys said, right? Like this was a way that I separated myself on this content.
To be succinct in the next, just sum up the point if you can, Frida, because we want to move on to the next one. But go ahead.
Gotcha. The devs didn't really have a vision for the competitive aspect of the game. Everything was done after the fact, whether it's time bank or one tick on 2CP or the design of the competitive base of the heroes. They sort of were just like, their way they designed it was just like an RPG, where they want the hero fantasy and any of the competitive expectations that we have based on the performance of the game in the years after launch was kind of facilitated by the community, and they dragged their feet behind it to try to like catch up, which is why we got roll queue halfway through the life cycle of Overwatch 1. They didn't necessarily even want roll queue. That's why it took so long, because they want free expression. They originally wanted infinite pick or whatever it was. Like they said
no
at the start of the game, no limits was core to the design philosophy of the game. No limits. That's what they said at the time, right? And we just forget all of this. Like they weren't really trying to make an esport game. Meanwhile, Activision wanted one, right? So there's these competing interests where they're like pulling away. The devs never wanted to do any of that.
Right. I'm gonna conclude that section there. Flats, I want to give you one more say on your hot take about what you said. Let's go back toward the MOBA side. Anything else you want to add? Make supports bad again, and then we're gonna move on to the next hot take that's coming.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mean it's like make supports bad again. It's just more.
No,
of like
I'm just adding the thing that we came to.
Yeah, it's one of those things that's like it might be scary to think about because like, oh my god, like I don't want to go back to goats. It's like goats was let's get it clear. Goats was an example of it going way too far. Like where abilities and stuff like that was dictating the game way beyond what it should have, and that was not okay. Like what I'm saying at that point is pushing more back towards almost like the 2-2-2, and not even all the way there, right? Like it's like we won't get all the way there. It's not even possible. But a little bit more towards like the synergy / like there's reasons to look for your teammates beyond just the tank role, because at least at the moment, you can just not join voice, not turn on your brain, and just do whatever you want, and you'll still have a really good chance of winning on the other roles. Tank doesn't have that privilege, so it's just a much more miserable experience. And so to put that more in line with what the tank role is, everyone should have to be working together and playing together to succeed. You shouldn't be able to just constantly play solo queue, do whatever you want, and have a great impact. You should take a hit for that. On average. Now, if you're just like the most mechanically gifted player of all time and you just hit nothing but headshots, sure, like you could still probably pull it off, but nobody's really doing that. So, not saying let's get back to goats or open queue or anything like that. Just saying let's pull it back a little bit because the whole idea of Overwatch 2, like when we went into it, like they were talking about making supports more duelist and being able to fight more and almost like pseudo DPS. Has made it so there's almost 4 DPS on the field in one tank / MOBA character, and now you're alone.
Flats doing a good job of tempering his hot take. They're just being like, I'm not going too hot, but here let's dial it back a little bit. Okay. Bogur, have you managed to cook yet? I'm going to take Danteh as well, but have you managed to cook?
I've written down our list. I'm not going to go into too much details. I want to read it out.
I will not explain myself. I will just throw the ideas out.
I want to read it out. And I want you guys to choose ideas that sound okay or interesting, and then we can talk about that, okay?
Okay.
I just had a brainstorming session. So some of them are pretty timid, some are pretty wild. So, remove row passives. Tanks cannot swap. Add a flex row that can go any row. So, for example, the second DPS can pick support, tank, DPS, whatever they choose. Only one from the team can do that. Add map picks or picking game modes. DPS passive doesn't affect tanks. Reduce respawn timer for tanks. Add more CC. Make tanks do less damage, but have more CC in our tank here, so they're more like a MOBA character. So you don't die a lot, but you don't can't one shot. Can pick each hero once again. So for example, somebody goes Roadhog, they swap off Roadhog, it can't go back. And add team up like in Marvel Rivals, because Marvel Rivals has team ups depending on which characters you choose, and they give you a passive.
My oh my, quite a few ideas thrown out there. Danteh, any that stuck out to you?
I think the flex roll would actually be really cool, but I think it'd be really broken. Like there'd definitely be so many combinations of heroes that would just be insane. Like you play like Zarya Doom or something, you just bubble Doom, and then it's like, how do you play against that? So
Cool.
I think the idea is really cool. I mean, maybe.
I think you need to do a lot of balancing around it, but it allows a lot more creativity in a team environment, and it also reduces the chances of having like goats compositions and stuff, but you can still be creative. And there's always, I feel like in a pro setting, one player, like for example you, that is really flexible and can play multiple roles, right? You have your tank player that can play 2 tanks and the support players, but then you have the flexible player, and the flexible player being able to swap to any role would allow for people to go really fun, interesting compositions. And it would be broken if you implement it like this, but maybe if they implement that flex row with a bunch of other balances, it could make the game really refreshing and also make a lot more creativity happen while also reducing the chances of having like absolutely insane compositions.
Yeah, I think one thing they could actually do, say you pick like 2 tanks or something, maybe it like makes the tanks have like 20%
Maybe
less
like in
HP or
open queue, maybe
something.
they have the open queue HP if you have 2 tanks.
Yeah, okay.
Because in
I
open,
don't think you could have like that little, but I think
but
like maybe reducing by 20%, and if
maybe.
you have like supports, maybe reducing like overall healing output by a little bit. But maybe that wouldn't even be needed, just the way support is. I think it'd need testing, but I actually think it could be a really cool idea, and it would bring back like a lot of team play aspects that Overwatch doesn't really have right now, while
Yeah.
also still like keeping the good FPS values. So I think that'd be really cool.
I think it will also satisfy the people that want to play with their tank buddies, for example, or do
Yeah.
something more fun, And I think
Here
it can
comes.
make. Yeah, I'm not saying anything. I'm just saying, it could satisfy the needs of some people out there that are thirsting over former memories and teammates. Yes.
Yeah,
Anything
I mean,
else?
I personally quite like it as well. I mean, it feels a lot to the idea I've kind of thrown out before about essentially open queue, but with a 2-hero limit, right? It's like if you have open queue, but you can't pick more than 2 of one role, it effectively becomes what you're suggesting, Bogur. I guess it's just everyone can kind of swap around a little bit rather than just the one flex player. Because I also enjoy the idea of, and this is interesting because go ahead.
I was saying that my original idea was that you would have one person that is the flex player that can do it, but I don't mind your idea either. Like maybe one person can swap at all times, but I don't know how you would implement it. I feel like it would be really hard to implement unless there's one person who can only swap to every other role.
Yeah, I think having a dedicated flex person would be like really fun.
Because the question is, the question then becomes, what slot does that occupy? Like
it's kind of like jungle in League.
So what are you queuing for though? Is what I'm saying. Like, what is the game assigned?
No,
one
you
tank,
queue as a separate row.
But what does the game have? One tank,
one tank,
DPS,
one
and
DPS.
One support?
No. One tank, one DPS. The other DPS is a flex and 2 supports.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, this is the open sessions. We're just gonna throw out ideas and run with them. So yeah, I mean, I like the idea of players being able to kind of bounce around a little bit. I think it's better for a casual experience. I was going to say this is what I think Marvel Rivals is showing. For all its flaws, I think it has many flaws. It's like one of its appeals is its ease of access, I think. And I think the ability to kind of like for people to swap around, even in the games I was playing, a lot of people were like, hey, we need another tank. Okay, I'll go, whatever, blah, blah, blah. So I do think it's like helpful for people to be able to kind of bounce around. And I also like the idea of there coming like a cost for some of these things. Although I think inherently there's a cost as well, because if there's only 5 players, you're missing out on a support or a tank or DPS. You are already paying some sort of cost for losing that one player. But like what Danteh suggested as well, of like maybe there's a 20% health reduction that comes with it, and it can be like a big thing that shows up. Like, okay, you've picked 2 tanks now, your HP is going to be less. Although it would be fucking annoying when you're like outside playing and some guy in spawn swaps and your HP just drops because you're the tank outside. It's like, what the fuck? I lost 20% HP. Of course, teething issues. But Flats, Frito, any ideas on this sort of what Bogur or any other of the Bogur many suggestions that were thrown out?
This is supposed to be a safe space, so I'm reluctant to respond. I appreciate the dialogue that we're having. I think like it was really cool when Brigitte first came out. Like then we saw like a lot of DPS players flex onto the Brigitte hero, and then before we knew it, we were all playing tanks, and then that was really great. Yeah, I think there's like some pretty severe red flags with again, he just thought of it in this call. Okay, so let me not try to like bury you, but there's the fact of the matter. We're suggesting we're going to take the most popular role, take out away one of them from the queue to go play another role. And it's like, well, we already know how this pans out. It's like, if we're going to allow it to be human preference, then in open queue, we saw the results of that. And then if we try to force them down lanes in role queue, we saw the result of that. Like, we have all of the data on this. So I don't come to any of these conversations trying to force my opinion. All I care about is like, what's going to actually occur with the human nature we know exists. And honestly, at this point, I'd be more open to open queue with hero bans and draft. I'd rather have that conversation rather than these like hybrid role queue things that are trying to like borrow from part of one system and incorporate in another. Like, I think we just got to commit to the game we actually want. And because I'm pretty tired of them reinventing the wheel on this game, guys. Like, it's exhausting. Like, at first, like, I was really optimistic about like the season 9 changes, and now I'm just kind of sick of them in some ways because the game's getting more brawly as well. Like, everything's kind of a tank in a way, and like I don't know, man. Like I'm happy for these new games to be coming out. I'll put it that way. I'm very, very happy because I think you guys should get everything you want in Marvel Rivals, because I don't want to play that game. I'm not a Marvel fan. I think everything, every crazy idea, just go put it in Marvel Rivals, because I want to play a sensible, like, medium shooter game. Maybe we can have a little more MOBA, but you know, not all craziness. I want it to be. I want a tank in front of me all the time. I want a reasonable team comp, because I had too many years of watching gameplay of someone sending in a VOD review of like, well, how do I win this game in gold as Ana? Okay. They have tanks and I don't.
I understand. You know, we get it. This is philosophically not your juice, and that's all right. I'll let you cook for your own. You know, you kind of said, oh, I'd rather see the hero ban draft mode. So I'll let you hold that for a second as your potential break the glass. I'm going to take it to Flats. Flats, either on the Bogur idea that we're just talking about, or any of the others that you maybe remember caught your eyes. Like, oh, what about that one? More CC. Yeah, that sounds good.
I mean, I wouldn't say that literally ever. Not even on my deathbed. Like, you couldn't pay me enough money.
That's how you know you've been hacked. If Flats ever tweets
I didn't say which
hacked.
role should have the CC, and it's just a random idea.
I'm just saying. Well, hang on. When did the season 9 changes come out? February. So
during season 9.
Yeah, I called it. I literally said, I think, on this podcast, give it 3 months, and everyone will say it's going to be great for the first month and a half, and then we'll start seeing the cracks. And about 3 months in, everyone's going to get tired of it. Here we are, 3 months later. So if you want to have that logic of stop reinventing the wheel, let's have the big conversation, because it's time. Let's have the big one. If you talk about reinventing the wheel constantly, you keep making giant changes to your game over and over and over, then that means there's an argument to stop making big changes and almost keep the game at its core the same way as it should have been for years, which is the way people thought the game should be played, which was the 6v6 model. So for years, people wanted the 6v6. People had the 6v6 model, and that was the way the game was played for 6 years, right? Going to 5v5. The big reason going 5v5 was queue times. Like, you just couldn't get a fucking game otherwise. Like, that is the big one. But if you're talking about like actual gameplay experience, that probably would have never happened. They probably would have just kept it the same way it was, and you wouldn't have to think about reworking all these heroes and reworking all these maps and reworking all these things. But that's the reality we're in. And it's like they're trying to reinvent the wheel because the game needs to be reinvented because of the format we're currently in. And it's like, if that is the best way to go forward, we have to keep reinventing the wheel. And that is the only way that this game will continue to thrive and survive, because you've already killed off the group of people who were hardcore into your game and no matter what would happen, which was those Overwatch 1 diehards for those last 2 years of the game when nobody was playing and nobody knew was coming to play, as the game slowly shrunk. So like, if you have to keep the same game that you wanted at that point, then you have to look back and go, okay, well, we went way too far off the path. Like, we should have stayed back on this. But like, if we want to keep pressing forward, we have to keep trying new shit constantly. And if you don't keep trying new shit, then it's just going to fall apart, because all of your people that were diehard and super sunk into the game and wanted this or loved this one certain thing are not happy anymore. And all the people that like the new stuff, which is constantly being reevaluated and constantly being changed, aren't going to like if it stops. So you have to either stop reinventing the wheel or go back and use the old wheel. So it's like, at that point, we've already dug ourselves into that hole, and there is no getting off that train. Like, and unfortunately, it's a terrible fucking job for the devs to have, and it's why I try not to be as hard on them nowadays, because I don't even think I could do it. Like, I used to be very fucking confident that if you stuck me in that room, I could probably figure out, like, oh, like, certain hero's broken. Yeah, let's get that out of there. But it's got so far down the line that I don't think you can just like fix like a few things and it's all better. You just have to keep reshuffling things and keeping it fresh constantly. And like, that is the way of a live service game. And Overwatch is a live service game, just like Valorant, just like Apex. And you know what Apex did recently? They came out with talent trees. And their talent trees thing is that as you level up through the game, you can progress and basically make all your characters broken like they used to be. You can make Wraith just as broken as it used to be. You can make Octane as broken as it used to be. All these things that were extremely problematic for the game. You know what? You want to go? We could do that route with Overwatch. Why don't I make talent trees in Overwatch? You can make talent trees in Overwatch that if you stick with a hero and you're getting kills and you're progressing through the game, you start leveling up your talent tree, and then you can enable every play style you want. You can have the flank Junkrat players, you can have the spam Junkrat players. And it's like the flank Junkrat players might get an extra mine, or they go further on their mine, but the spam Junkrat players get bigger projectiles, or they get a faster fire rate or something. And that way you can end up enabling everyone's playstyle. But if you swap heroes, now you lose your juice. And it's like, well, now I have to think, is the counter swap worth it? Because I get to keep my leveled up hero and my more juiced up, powerful hero. Or I can counter swap and get a better advantage and then build up that tree as the match progresses. You'd have to keep constantly evolving the game to a point where it might get out of control. But how long is Overwatch supposed to survive? It's already been 7, actually 8. Is it 7 or 8 years at this point?
I think we're going on 8.
We're going on 8.
8.
We're going on 8 fucking years. We're like League of Legends at this point. Like, you're not going to get that many new players every season unless you get something big that gets people's eyeballs popping out of their head and go, whoa, what did Overwatch just do? And season 9 was that thing for them, because they changed all the hitboxes, they changed all the way the guns work, they reworked the rank system. It was the big thing, and they even came out and said it was the first time ever that ranked was the most played game mode ever in the history of Overwatch. Why is that? Because it was the fun, shiny new toy. So it's like, you have to let them keep reinventing the wheel constantly. And it's like, you have to try the crazy shit. You have to let them constantly do it. And sometimes it's gonna fucking suck balls. And they need to be goddamn faster about it. And it sucks, because I know that Overwatch doesn't make the money of Fortnite. You can't be making the game go as fast as Fortnite, but they have to figure out somehow to do that, because they're gonna keep falling behind everyone else in the industry. You can't, we've already been 2 years behind, and they did a great job of starting to catch up, of like 2, 3, 4 years behind. They got it to like a 2-year gap, but now that gap feels like it's starting to slip again in a lot of ways. So how do you update that? How do you keep it going? You have to put your foot on the gas and keep fucking moving forward. But they also have to realize when something doesn't work and it's not feeling very good. And the only thing that I say and I take away from at this point from the 6v6 people is that I don't agree with you. And I still don't agree with you to this day. But I don't like how far they just do not acknowledge it and they don't talk about it. Why the fuck doesn't somebody come out and say the actual reason and talk about like just say it's like Q time. Just say it's something. Just say it's something. Just be honest. You know, like, give them something and keep pressing forward and keep making a goddamn better game, because they've been trying to make the right calls this entire time, and they need to keep pressing forward and they need to keep making new stuff. And they need to keep making the game interesting, because if the game isn't interesting, it doesn't matter how balanced it is. It doesn't matter what the philosophy is. It doesn't matter if it's a MOBA. It doesn't matter whatever the fuck we do, because this shit will fall apart, because we're 8 years in and it's not going to go anywhere, because you're going to have a new game that's going to come out and people are going to go play the new game. They're not going to go back and play 8-year-old Overwatch, because we don't have a big cinematic hit. We don't have a Netflix series. We don't have any more cinematics coming out. We have no mainstream media that's going to be hitting people. It's going to be word of mouth, and it's going to be gamers trying to get their friends to come play. That's it. That's what you got. And so you got to pick something, and you got to go all in.
I can respond just real quick, short little response.
Okay, really quick.
Exactly why he made all those points is why I dropped my opinion on this. Like everything he just said is completely right? So I don't get to have my opinion or the thing I want, and I try to invite the community to realize when that's the case for each of us individually. We can't all get what we want. We have to sacrifice something. So this is a point that I'm willing to sacrifice. And well said, Flats.
Yeah, I mean, I'm proud of you, Rito, for acknowledging that. I think that's a very thing more people should do, is say, you know what? Yeah, what I want is probably not what's best for the game. Flats, one beauty of Overwatch is that even when you're unwell, it draws the spirit out of all of us. I can't remember the number of podcasts where we've started and been like, oh man, I'm not feeling good today. And then Flats like, you fucking you want the truth? Oh, you can't handle the truth. This is the fucking truth. And he goes off. And that was one of your top 10 rants on the podcast, I would say, Flats. I would 100% agree. I don't have too much more I want to add. One more point I want to add, and I want to hear Bogur and Dante's opinion. All I would add on top of that is that, I think all of us here in this call are very, rational, data kind of driven people. We like to kind of go by what we see. And I think what Flat's already saying, the kind of data on the other games already proves this. It's like there's only really one game I can think of that doesn't reinvent itself and is still successful, and that would be CS. And even that has reinvented itself by becoming CS2. But outside of that, like any popular game has reinvented itself multiple times. Fortnite, Flats, you already mentioned. But the MOBAs, both League and Dota, constantly reinvent themselves. They still have, I was talking about this in the last podcast call, like Dota, even in the time that I've been grinding it the last 12 to 18 months, has reinvented itself twice. Like, it's changed completely twice. And even as someone who's learning, who's like, oh man, it's kind of partly frustrating because I'm like, oh, I was just getting the hang of the previous format because I'm approaching it with the mentality of grinding and improving, and I'm like, I just got a hang of it, and they reinvented it again. But that is what a top game does to stay relevant, and these are games that are, no disrespect to Overwatch, a magnitude of order more successful than Overwatch, and they do it too. So I don't really see the value in stable, like, and it's also why I'm not philosophically against 6v6. But I think the point of going back to 6v6 is like, okay, you think that's a better format, but you're gonna go back, and then from there you're gonna have to iterate again somewhere, right? It's not that we go back to 6v6 and it's perfect and everything's fine. Even when we go back to 6v6, we're still gonna have to keep iterating. So if we're just gonna keep iterating, we may as well just iterate now and go somewhere else with it instead of going back with it. Let's just go somewhere crazy. Like, I'm all for the crazy. That's why we've encouraged this discussion. And to that end, Danteh, how do you feel about all of this? Anything you want to add on this?
You guys are cooking. Cooked a buffet. I'm ready to eat. I think it was all. I agree with like everything. I feel like just change is what people like. Maybe not at first, but it gets people playing. It gets everyone like talking about the game. It's like, whoa, look at what Overwatch just did, or look at like Fortnite right now. Like you can play Aang and fucking Katara. It's like people talk about that stuff a lot. And that's how you win with these like these new models. You just need the people to like play the game, get on, talk about with their friends, and big changes is how you do that. So I agree with basically everything said.
Bogur.
I love change. I love when things change. I love one of the reasons why I love Dota, even though I don't have time to play it, but I would play it a lot if I did. But I love that they keep reinventing stuff. I love change so much. I wish Overwatch did more changes. When you make a big change, a lot of people will be unhappy, but a lot of people will be happy, and there will be a reason why they should, why people would come back and play the game. Season 9 was a really good example of that. A lot of people don't like it by now or didn't like it back then, but it doesn't really matter. There's way more people that came back and enjoyed it purely because it was a new thing. There was a lot of new HP, rank system, whatever, right? It was fun. It was enjoyable. I wish Overwatch did more crazy stuff. At this point, I much rather have big crazy changes happen very often, every like season or two, than have a really boring, stale, balanced game. Because having a balanced game is really difficult to achieve, because balancing is a matter of perspective, really. It can be balanced for top 500, but it's going to be unbalanced for lower elos, and vice versa. It could be balanced for the Roadhog player because Roadhog is playable, but then it's super unbalanced for the Winston player. You can't satisfy everyone. I much rather have the game be a fun, refreshing experience every few months than sit there and be really, really stale for months and months just so it can be balanced. I like big crazy changes. I like the Lucio April Fool's patch way back when you could kill with your beat. I think they should add this to the game because it's really fun. It's really fun seeing this. At first, I really disliked the remake kills with D.Va, but over time it grew on me because it's really fun to see it happen. I wish there were more funny things like this that could happen in game. To me, the game right now feels really stale because we don't have so many fun things happening. It's literally just running around and getting your DPS gets a kill, your DPS gets a headshot. There's nothing really funny or unique happening, right? When they added Earthshatter insta-killing up close, that was funny. D.Va Remix, that's funny. There's so many funny little things that I think they should, add and, build on. And honestly, when Flats was talking about talent trees, I love that idea. I think we should have that for a season or two. They can revert it afterwards, but it'll be fun. It'll be fun because there's going to be new content. There's going to be a reason to play the game. It'll be really shit probably after a while when people get bored with it. And balance-wise, it will be shit. I'm sorry, Danteh. But it will be really fun to play on stream. And I just want to have fun. I just really, really want to have fun. I want to go into ranked in high elo and run it down with Junkrat with 4 mines and just fly across the sky and get the far end Mercy. It'll be funny. It'll be so funny. And I think that is the way the game gets more popular and more interest and more interesting. Because if you just play the same game over and over and over again and people lose interest, it will just fall off. And there's no way you can market it. Like Season 10 was really boring, except for Venture. But then they nerfed Venture to ground, and there was no real reason for people to come back for Season 10. The balance patches were boring, except the mid-season patch, but it was too late. And everything else they added was just underwhelming, to say the least. So all the hype they built up in Season 9 just really died out really quick in Season 10 because nobody wanted to keep playing because the meta was the same basically. Everything was the same, and they added a character that wasn't that great. So I like big changes, and I wish they added more big changes. And I want crazy stuff from the dev team. And I know it's really scary, but just look at Fortnite or Dota, or I know what's happening with League. I don't think they do that many crazy things, but they did change the map a bit. And it works out for them because it appeals to the casual audience, and it appeals. Some people are going to be angry and that are really high rank, but fuck them, like they're going to be miserable. They're going to be. I when I was playing the game 24/7 in top 500 and going for rank 1 and top 10, I was miserable fucker, and I know I was a miserable fucker because I wasn't trying to have fun. I was just trying to get high rank, but it didn't mean anything. It was meaningless. Now, when there's something fun, I just enjoy it and I move on when it's not fun. And I think the game should just be more fun and more silly. And I like silly stuff and I like crazy things. And I think it would be cool. And I think that is my. I agree with Flats with a lot of things. And for the final thing for the 6v6 and 5v5 is that if we just Dota makes a lot of changes and League does a lot of changes and all of these games do a lot of changes, but the core stays the same. And I don't know if it was the correct choice to go to 5v5. Maybe not, maybe yes. But if we go back to 6v6, we just undo everything they've worked on for the last year and a half. And it's just a meaningless conversation to me personally. Like, we won't just go 6v6 and it's all gonna get balanced all of a sudden. We just need to start again, and I just want them to keep building upon what they have. Maybe it wasn't the right choice. Maybe it was. To me, it doesn't matter. I just want them to keep building upon the thing they have. Fuck ups happen. Whether it was a fuck up or not, I don't know. But if it was, fuck it, we ball. Going back is just gonna repeat everything again, and that's why I don't want it.
Yeah,
Well, I mean, if we go ahead, Danteh, you go ahead.
I was gonna say I agree. I think the one thing they don't even need to think about anymore is pro play. Like, dude, that stuff is so unserious right now. It's like people don't make money at all from it. It's not like there's like a league for it anymore. So they can do these crazy changes, and they don't need to worry about that because, like, I don't know. It seems like esports is kind of just moving away from that. Like, it's more like the serious or like the unserious big changes and stuff like Fortnite. It seems like this is what's best for the game and stuff. And, like, I'm all for what's best for the game. Moving on, I actually had a question. How often would you guys like to see these changes? Like, for me, I think like every 4 months would be good, maybe 4 to 5, because I feel like you can't have like huge changes like every 2 months. Like, I feel like that's excessive, and it probably puts a lot of workload on them, and they can't really make them as as good quality as they'd like to. So for me, I think like 4 months is good, but I'm curious what other people would think.
3 to 4 is my exact answer. I think when I talked to Aaron about this when I did my interview with him, like, I was like, I know it's not possible, but like in an ideal world, if you wanted to make this like the best you could, every 3 to 4 months would probably be like the best you could do. And they'd already started it seemed like he was throwing around the idea of like, when are the big changes needed? Is it once a year? Is it twice a year? And I was like, I don't want to push you too hard, but like, I think it might be a little bit more than twice a year. But I understand how much of a struggle it probably is to get to that point.
Yeah, I mean, what did he give you any answer? Because my answer kind of depended on what he said was a doable pace. Did he ever say like, we can kind of do something like this?
I don't think so. I think it was more of like they were still talking about it because like season 9 was still pretty fresh at that point, and it was like we realized that we have to like give this game a heartbeat type of deal. And I personally, like, I mean, I made the prediction months ago, like a couple months ago when we had this first come out. I said for 3 months, people are going to love it, or first month or two. And then at about 3 months, that's when people get tired. And we're hitting that point right now. It's actually closer to 4, like ish months. So like 4 times a year would be ideal. But like like genuinely, I hate that I'm going to say this, but it's like, they don't have the resources, but it's like they don't have excuses anymore. The excuses are gone. Like, they're not working on PvE anymore. PvE's gone. It's axed. It's not coming back. No matter what. That's gone. Big Bobby's gone. Now it's time. Like, now it's time to lock the fuck in and like start making this shit really, really good. And it's like, that is the way, but I don't even think they have like the personnel. I don't think they have enough people. Like, you can't compete with Fortnite. They make billions. They have so much cash on hand that it's like, it's stupid. It's actually stupid what they can do. Like they can just at any moment just like, yeah, we want this thing to exist. We're gonna make sure it exists. And like not many games can do that. So I don't even know if it's possible, but
that is where my thing would lie, because there's shill accusations are never far at any time you're talking, like not you Flats, me, or any of us, or one is talking. The one place I would really criticize the devs is this, but I also want to be fair to them, because it's like, well, I don't know what it's like for them back there. Like I don't know what is the feasible pace they can do, but the place I would criticize them is that I feel like everything is really slow. Like we're getting these map reworks and they're like drip feeding them. Like it's like season 11, they'll be like the Colosseo, the map will be gone, or the glass will be gone. Oh, and maybe season 12 and season 13 Havana will be better. Like we're looking at like a year before like 3 maps are better, and it's like, no, what I want, and again in an ideal world, those Flats said, what I want is like every X months the whole game should feel different. I guess to answer Dante's question directly, maybe I'd be a bit more tempered. I'd say 6 months, a full like really big change, and maybe 3 months you could do something that's more akin to a quick play hacked, right? So like not literally a quick play hack, but like every 3 months maybe it's more feasible to change things that are not technical and fundamental to the game, like you just wacking up the abilities, and then in 6 months you do something really big, like you add like a talent tree, or you add like a draft mode or something. So for me that would be, because I want to be fair to them, and I also want to create an experience where players can kind of enjoy and really get into a thing that's new. But yeah, I don't understand what their technical capabilities are.
you want to know what I think it is?
Yeah, go ahead, Flats.
Genuinely, Blizzard's a stepping stone company. People don't want to work at Blizzard anymore. They use it as a resume builder. And I think that Overwatch is really fell victim to that, because the original Overwatch 2 team that built the game, like almost none of them work there anymore. Remember when they returned to office and stuff, like in March of 2023, all gone. Most of them left because they knew that they could make more money and work from home and have a better experience in another company. And when you have that happen, you start to lose your vision and your ideal of like what you want to make. And when you constantly have new people coming in and people leaving and people turning over and they don't want to be there, it's hard to get everybody on the same page for like what a vision is for a game. And it's like, you can't make a game if you don't even have an idea of what you're even going to make. You know, so like we tell them we want big changes, but they don't even have an idea on what the big changes should be, because they don't have time to like, they don't have the people to sit down and everybody like, let's talk about it for a fucking straight week. Let's talk about like what we want this game to be next. Like what's the next big change? And it's like, if you start working on that change and then half the people working on it aren't there anymore by like the halfway you get through it, and you bring in new people and you're like, wait, what are we doing? And it's like, then they're trying to copy what the first people were doing, but they're not like quite able to. And so they're kind of like fumbling along, and it's like the layoffs didn't help. And it's like, dude, how the hell are you even supposed to get to the finish line at that point?
Frito, I'm going to take it to you. Is that a sentiment you concur with?
Yeah, I mean, this is why like I struggle to be too outspoken about any given thing, because I just see them trying their best. And so, you know, I'm on board for the big changes, shake up the board, go ahead, do it. I'm gonna wince, but I won't be the guy complaining when it's broken. I don't think I've necessarily, I'm trying to remember, have I done that in Overwatch 2? I don't think so, because I feel like they do this and then we're immediately all like, oh my god, Mauga's meta, oh god, how dare you even attempt to make a shooter character that could shoot far in the tank row. Well, what's wrong with you, Blizzard, you morons? And you know, he starts coming out, and we're on this podcast debating like whether his ult's good or not, and I'm sitting there scratching my head like, I think it's the best ult in the game. I don't know, who knows? It's like I feel like I'm in the Twilight Zone, just running in circles. I don't know how to respond to this, because the amount of cognitive dissonance that's allowed in our community is baffling to me. Like the switch ups from we want this, but we're gonna complain about it when we get it. Like, it's outrageous. So I don't know how to help. Yeah, I think you guys are right. They got to do that. I'm going to grit my teeth and bear it. But then when it doesn't work as a competitive game, then we have to admit that. Like, we know what talent trees do to games. We've seen this in other games. You can look at Heroes of the Storm had a talent tree system instead of an item system, for example. I think, you know, no, everyone's going to wince when I say this name, but Call of Duty has a perk system. Black Ops 2 was a decently competitive console shooter, maybe not as hard as Halo, but these systems that have these perk trees or talent trees or whatever are really easy to solve. As in, there's very clear, obvious best answers. From a casual point of view, though, you are allowed more individual expression. So I'm excited at that opportunity. And I think if I had to choose, I would try to design the game to be more palatable in ranked with the type of player base we have, rather than try to like maximize the top tier gameplay, which I think I've been consistent on for years now, because the top tier balancing always devolves into one of two things. Either there's synergy that makes a team comp like unbeatable, or there's some high skill expression hero that dominates the game, or multiple of these two things. But those are like basically how it's worked for the history of the game. And no matter what they add, no matter what they balance, no matter what system we have, no matter what format we're in, you're still doing that. And everyone takes turns on what they do or don't hate, but it's always these things. So put that off to the side. That's not getting fixed, in my opinion. Hero bans, just do that. And then I think it's really interesting because we're talking about all these format ideas, and people asked for more self-sustainability in their positions in Overwatch for years, like in various ways. And then we get it in Overwatch 2, and that actually makes tank weaker. Because in Overwatch 1, if your tank did or didn't make space, the whole game was massively easier. Whereas now, I think we're all in kind of an agreement to some degree. You can kind of sack the tank, but win anyway, somehow. Yet they're the most important role, yet they aren't. Yet we should help them, but we don't need to. Like, and it's kind of because of this. It's like there's this split in how the game gets played from like a ideal standpoint and a rank standpoint that it's too divergent for I think for the community to be happy about it. Let's put it that way. And you know, I'm all on board for us trying to attack that specifically. I think the tank didn't really benefit, I think, is like a better way to say it. The tank didn't benefit in the same ways the other roles benefited from this like self-sustainable idea. Because it's still trying to play Overwatch 1 with less tools, and then the team's sort of just like, good luck, buddy. You counter pick for me? Because I don't want to counter pick I don't want to pick to help you or counter them. I'm going to do what I want to do. I'm going to play Lifeweaver, who's like just this, you know, completely in the back chilling. Like he's got a pedal, he's got a couch in the back, he's got his feet up, right? He's in his dad recliner chair, just like, here's some help. And maybe once in a while I'll save you. But that's like all we're contributing to the tank fight. And I think like there's a lot of roles that's the most extreme one, but there's a lot of characters and roles that feel like that. And then us tank players are still stuck trying to play a role in a completely different game, which like functionally we're trying to do the same things, but don't have any of the tools or map geometry to do it.
Okay, so this has been a great discussion on this point. Bogur, I wanted you to give me your number for how often you want your changes.
Oh, I want to reply to Frito for one thing, but it's fine. For changes,
you can, if you can succinctly do it, because I want to move on. But
no, I will do it fast.
Reply.
I will do it fast.
Yeah.
I was just saying that I agree with Frito, and I understand the statement of it's really annoying when people want something and then they give it to us and then we still complain. But there's just 2 or 3 points I want to say is that it's okay if we are wrong and things happen as long as they can hotfix it fast. I think it's also okay to have like big reactions if some of the things they implement are way too out there or too strong and might break the game. And third of all, I think a lot of people online are just stupid, and I think a lot of people that are happy with the changes won't speak up, and they're just gonna play the game, and then a very loud minority would just sit there and complain on Twitter. Like, for example, the funny practice range clips where people just sit there and shoot the AFK bots and then complain something is broken. I think, but I like the big changes, and I think we shouldn't let people's negativity deter us from making big changes. But for the changes thing, I think one really big change once a year at the beginning, and then 2 or 3 still big or decently sized, but not as big as the first one. Like something like what League does. League does insanely big changes at the beginning of the season, changes up everything balance-wise and everything like item-wise and map-wise, and just makes the game really fresh. So anyone that returns during this year, it's really exciting and fun. And then during the rest of the year, every 3 months or 4 months, they make also some decently sized patches and keep the game fresh.
I like it. Thank you. I'm gonna go back to Danteh because he's the one who kind of started this discussion. Danteh, firstly, are you happy with the answers you got? Does that change your answer? And B, I actually never got your break the glass solution if you have one. So now's your chance.
I can't cook. The oven's broken. I don't have anything. Just nerf support. Make support bad. Everyone has more fun when Kiriko's bad. That's the truth. That's the truth to Overwatch too. So
That's fair. I
yeah.
appreciate that. And so yours, you kind of landed at, did you say like 3 or 4 months? You kind of want to see that as your
Yeah, probably
change?
4 months, maybe 4 to 6. Because I mean, it's just hard to put out changes that fast. So I think 4 to 6 is probably a realistic amount.
Yeah, this is where again it's like it would be interesting to have the devs inside because maybe they're listening to us and they're like, these fucking idiots think 3 months we can make a change. They're fucking out of their mind. They have no idea what they're talking about. How do they? Why are we sending these guys checks? These are bad shills. These are fucking shit shills. We should hire new ones. But
Where's my check?
I know where's my check. I know that's what I keep asking. I didn't. If I said 3 months, my check gets canceled. I think yeah. I think we've kind of given a good range of opinions on this topic. So I want to now actually move back to the tanks. Ostensibly, this was the great tank debate. And I think this was all relevant. I think all of these were relevant ideas because what I really appreciate was we've got some really different ideas here today. Like I think probably all of us in this call and maybe those listening are a bit tired of the same 3 or 4 solutions bouncing back around about like how we should quote unquote fix tank. And I think what we've got here is a more holistic approach to like making Overwatch fun in general. So I appreciate that. But let's also stay grounded. If we can't have our utopian world of rapid changes coming through 3 to 6 months, whatever that may be, we do have this current game and we do have things we want potentially changed in a more minor way. So we're going to go through each of the tanks now. And I actually need to pull up the hero roster so that I can go through alphabetically what we think should be changed or maybe not changed about each of the tanks. And we'll start with D.Va. I did not realize that D.Va was the first alphabetical tank. But D.Va, I'm going to go to Danteh because Danteh, you actually earmarked D.Va already. You were like, it's kind of like, why would you pick D.Va? Like, what can you even do in this state? So how do you feel about the state of D.Va and what would you change?
I feel like she's pretty bad in Overwatch 2 just because she's like a hero that enables other heroes. I feel like that was her design philosophy for Overwatch 1. But if you're doing that, then you just can't win because you have no frontline presence. So you'd have to give her some sort of frontline presence, but I don't know how they do that. I'd have to probably think about it because everything you think about, like, there's always going to be a big negative consequence to adding like a new ability. Like you could like, I don't know. Give her like a shield or something,
Safe
but then like,
space. Go.
yeah, I don't know. It's like I have nothing that comes to mind. Maybe give her rockets like a burn or something, like dynamite or something. I don't know. That way people get like lit on fire, and then I don't know, just extra damage. You need to make her stronger in the front line. So maybe changing the way her gun works. I don't know.
Okay. Well,
Hard to
like
come up
again,
with stuff.
this is why I'm sure the devs also understand they don't need you to come up with a solution. This is why they always say, give me the feedback, not the solutions, right? Like we'll come up with the solutions, you give us the feedback.
Yeah.
So you've given very good feedback there, which is to say, well, here's the problem is that she doesn't have a frontline presence. And you said earlier as well, I think you said it really well, that like when the D.Va's there, there's this big gap in your frontline. Like there's just like doesn't feel like there's a person there. Whereas, like a Ram can occupy 3 people, Ball can occupy 3 people. So is that perhaps the best summation of your thoughts? Like we need some way for D.Va to like occupy a lot of people and be there as a presence.
Yeah, because like if you're shooting, you're taking a lot of damage and you can't do anything. Like, and if you're matrixing, you're not doing anything. Like they're just wasting 4 seconds. So I think you need to be able to do both or something. I don't know. It needs to be more functional.
Okay, Bogur, someone who's often been on the receiving end of a D.Va in your face.
Yeah, well,
What else?
yeah.
Go ahead. What do you
I've
think? What do you
played
think of
D.Va.
the state of D.Va? Yeah, you also going to say you've also played a lot of D.Va, so.
Yeah, I agree with Danteh. I think for the longest time in Overwatch 2, she was just purely picked to maybe match some certain dive tanks, but in pro play, she was always outmatched by, other like Winston, D.Va, or Bo, because they provide more utility in some way or another. I think the core design philosophy of D.Va is just really not fitting in Overwatch 2 because, as Danteh said, he is there to support the other tank that doesn't exist anymore or enable her teammates. But if you enable the teammates, then she can't do her job as a tank. There's so many things that the tank role is needed for. You need to do so many things at once, and D.Va can't do them all at once. So I feel like D.Va needs to get some changes. Either allow her to do both things at once, or give her some utility, or make her ult better, because I think her ultimate is really bad. I'll be honest. If you go in for a Diva Bomb kill, you will most likely die unless the enemy team is, kind of just AFK. And I feel like you kind of use it as a second life, at which point it's just worse Primo, right? So I think Diva, especially now with the armor changes, needs some big changes or maybe some redesigns to make her fit. I feel like she just doesn't fit, because you can't play it in rush, or you can't play it in dive, you can't play it in poke, you can't play in anything. She doesn't fit anywhere. She's kind of jack of all trades, but a master of none, and just sucks at everything. There's always something that's better than Diva. So yeah, I like some of the ideas. Maybe allow her to do two things at once. Maybe give her more utility towards her team. Maybe because if you matrix one side, then you take a lot of damage from the back. Maybe reduce the damage she takes from the back, or something that makes her either survive more, or do more damage, or have more utility. But choose a side that she's good at, because right now she's not good at anything.
Well, she was good at one thing.
Go ahead, Flats. Yeah, go ahead.
She was just good at dealing with Winston, but now the armor changed now.
With what armor change, you barely do any damage. I can just face tank the Diva right now. It's kind of funny, actually.
Yeah, I agree. I'm happy when I'm playing Winston, they swap Divix. I'm like, well, you're not gonna kill me. So your character's useless now. They're like, oh, you're just gonna lose the bubble is just 10 times better than anything the Diva does. So I was gonna say to Frida that ironically, it's like what the thing that made her so appealing in Overwatch 1 was her complete flexibility, right? Like people talked so much about like, well, she can kind of fit in any hole, and put her into any situation. But of course, that's not really like, this is where some heroes get left behind as we make progressive changes. That's not really what an ideal Overwatch 2 tank should do. So what is your stance on Diva?
I'll put this post in the ground, and it's probably going to apply to all the other tanks as well. Like, I'm sort of fine with the divergent playstyles. So I think that there is two ways to look at it. You can either try to make every tank sustain on the front line with reworks and extra abilities, sustain, everyone gets a fortify or some BS, like how far you want to go with it. Or we can look to use tanks to solve very specific problems. And I mean, Diva was a character I was playing a lot, and was getting better at it. Was getting coached by Forgiving, who's a friend of mine, top 500 player, and great coach, great Diva player, as well as Flex in general. But so a lot of the things that he was teaching me, I started to realize like kind of didn't apply anymore. So, not being able to shoot Winston at all is something I realized pretty quickly. That forced me to think about it. And I think this is another issue with some of these massive changes, that we might be a little slow to realize what the new function might be. So while you're certainly way worse at some of the tank matchups you expected to be good at as Diva before, you're way better at like contesting a Tracer, which at a high level tier you probably will never do. But I think it's important to realize that there's a lot of options in this game for a casual player to express themselves with a matchup that they feel they want a pick in the role to deal with. So an example might be Maga was designed to shoot up at Pharah, in theory, for the devs, right? They want a tank that can shoot the Pharah for the team. Now I think with the armor changes, like a Tracer or any shotgun like that, like kind of just doesn't even wreck you. So not only were you good at dealing with her because of Matrix and mobility, now you can like properly go at her. And just like I think flanking DPS in general is probably like the only way I can kind of see Diva be any good or being responsive. Like when I play damage anyway, like I feel one of the more oppressive tank picks that exist is Diva, just by how she can like play the field, go forward and back, but of course loses the tank fight. And so I'm kind of satisfied with that. I would think that the ult should probably be more consistent though. So anyway, to succinctly wrap up my points, I think there's like more about some of the tank matchups that we have to like learn. I'm curious what everybody else thinks. Like to me, I think if you don't want to mirror a Roadhog, she's like one of the better picks now, because shotguns do less against her. While his is maybe not losing as much as other ones. Like that's like the only tank I feel like can kind of go at a hog somewhat. Like that's like the one frontline matchup I think you're like decent at. But the other one's not so much. Like I can't really think of another one.
Hog versus Diva, I don't know. I don't agree that it's a good matchup, because I feel like maybe you don't take as much damage from the hog pellets nowadays, but the hog can just hook you and you can get burst down really fast. I feel like, I know maybe Danteh has a better perspective because he actually plays the game competitively.
Well, I hate to break it to you, but people don't play Hog and Diva in competitive play, so.
Well, here we have it.
Uno reverse. I don't even fucking know about these heroes. Flats, how about you? What's your take on the Diva situation?
On Diva?
Yeah.
Okay, let's pull it out. I think Diva is like a tier 2 version of like like annoying ass tanks. Like you have your tier 1s, which is like your Hog, Orisa, and Mauga. And then your tier 2 is your juiced up Zarya, Diva, and Doomfist. Tanks that like most of the time people are chill with. They're like, it's alright, it's fine. But if they get really strong, then people will just lose their mind. Like you always see that fucking DPS players like and when Diva's good, it's like I'm so sick of fucking Diva sitting on my head and I can't play the game for 4 seconds at a time and do absolutely fuck all. It's ass. And then from the Diva's perspective, it's like she doesn't even make sense. Like she's never made sense. Like she doesn't make sense in Overwatch 2. Never has. She was always an enabler tank. Her whole shtick was like, and I remember back in the day, it was like the most job security role like in Overwatch League. Like if you were a good Diva player, you guaranteed were a job for life until Sigma came out. It's like your whole thing was just like, if you're really good at balancing saving your other tank and you're really good at saving your backline, you're good to go. And it's like, if you watch like really good Diva players, half the time all they do is they stand there, don't take poke, and they just wait. They just wait for something. Like they wait for someone to engage their backline. They wait for a DPS player to go in and make a play. Like they just sit there and they do absolutely nothing. And it's like, it sucks because you would think almost that with the 20% change that it would actually kind of benefit Diva because you're trying to take like less damage. But it's the armor change is the big one because you can't even, there's nothing for you to shoot at. Because like at least before you could just shoot the other tank for a little while and just like, have a little bit of fun in the meantime while you wait for somebody to do something and like go to save somebody. But now you can't do that anymore. So like your only objective or only thing you can do is just help out a teammate or enable a teammate somehow. And it's like basically, I guess almost Zarya without the damage. It's like you're sitting there like, do I need to bubble somebody? Looking to bubble somebody. I'm taking all this damage. I need to manage my resources, but you can't use them for yourself because if you try to use them selfishly, then you can't save your teammates, and it's not even worth saving yourself. Like you have to always be saving someone else because like they actually bring value to the game. So why really pick Diva? And I don't think that will ever change unless you like buff Diva. And it's like if you buff Diva, then you have these situations where like Diva can be an unfun tank to play against, where you just straight up can't do anything for multiple seconds at a time in a fight, and it just feels kind of helpless. And people lose their shit sometimes. It's just not to the same levels like Mauga, Hog, Orisa, but it's just a legacy hero problem. And same thing you'd run into Ryan when Ryan's not like juiced up with a bunch of things. Like it's just an old hero that doesn't either is just like fell behind or just kit doesn't make sense in Overwatch 2.
And that will be inevitable to some extent. As much as we criticize the devs for things like this, it will be inevitable that as the game evolves, the design philosophy evolves, and I will come to you in a second, Bogur. As the game evolves and the design philosophy evolves, that like some heroes will get left behind. Like that is an inevitable part of any game where there are heroes. Like I've seen it happen in MOBAs too, where it's like you may start development with like the philosophy of like, okay, a hero does this, but inevitably 8 years down the line, you're going to change your vision and you're going to be like, actually, I think we can do this now. And especially when your pressure is to release new and unique heroes that do cool new things, at some point, some of your old heroes will get left behind. So I do sympathize with the devs on that one. And maybe it's okay for Diva to be like an inoffensive tank. Like she's not offensively bad and she's not like OP. So maybe that's okay. Bogur, what did you want to say?
I'm really happy Diva is bad. I hate when Diva is good. I just despise it. That was the only thing I wanted to say. I just hate the only people that like playing like when Diva is good is like people like Emong that play Diva, and I hate people like Emong when I play against them because they just go Diva when I go Winston. They beam my ass.
I bet.
I hope he is. I just despise playing against Diva players. I hate playing against Poco. I hate playing against Emong. I hate playing against all the Diva players. I just despise it, and I'm so happy she's bad. And they still pick Diva against me, and still sometimes annoying. But God bless the armor changes because I don't want Diva to be OP. Okay, I just want to add this. Thank you.
I will just add, because it seems like there isn't really a dedicated Diva representative here, which is that everyone finds some other tank annoying. someone out there is like, oh fuck you, Winston player, you and your
Winston
stupid
player hates
bubble.
Diva.
I know you, your stupid bubble, and your fucking taser cannon that just goes through my DM. Like fuck you. So that's the sentiment conveyed. I hope Emong, if you're listening, I did some vague justice to your. Although I don't think Emong would speak like that. But Danteh, anything you want to add on the Diva before we move on?
No, I've said everything I want to say.
Okay, cool, awesome. Let's move on from Diva then. To Doomfist. Now, I'm gonna bring it back to you, Danteh, because you are probably the most Doomfist amongst us. And yeah, what do you feel about the boy with the big punch?
I think before the change, the 20% healing change, Doomfist was a solid pick. But right now, I think he's just in a weaker spot because he takes so much damage. He also doesn't get the armor buff that all the other tanks do. I think if they just buff his like shield gain or something, I think his kit is really easy to buff because you just buff the numbers a little bit and then he'll eventually be good. Just don't do it too much or else he'll get instant nerfed and then he'll be bad for like another 6 months. So hopefully they do it gradually and don't make him super OP where everyone cries about him because he's a hero that people do not like playing against. So I think just slowly buff his numbers until he's playable.
Reasonable. He's not like just buff the fucking hero, make him OP. Let's go. Very reasonable take from Danteh. Frida, you said recently, you've kind of found that like Doomfist is like the answer for an average level player. Like until you get to the point where people know how to answer the Doomfist pick, which is hella frustrating for the Doomfist player. How do you feel about Doomfist in general?
Yeah, I mean, I think no hero that I tried to learn in the tank category made me more happy and giddy with the plays that I was making than Doomfist. It's utterly bullshit, the things you can get away with. It's unreal. Like the feints and like I think like it's what Overwatch 2 tanking could be. It's like a hero that's super output but counterable, and that's just like the nature of single tank. Like in best case scenario, maybe. Because the skill expression's utterly unreal on the character. Like because a lot of my knowledge of how to engage as like Winston still translated, but then all of a sudden I was Roadhog when the enemy shot me. I was like, oh wait, I can actually not only is the punch lethal, but I have a shotgun as well. Like, oh wow. And there's a lot of things in the game where other tanks like just kind of don't have the damage to punish individual targets. And so I think Doom's like okay as a ranked pub stomper pick, and we should leave him there. I'm not so sure like I would jump for joy to hear buffs for him at any point. Like they did a lot to make him reliable, and maybe lessons that we can learn, like getting empowered punch after your ult, for example. It's like that's like one of those changes I think could be applied and thought to like the other tanks. Like how could Diva have a similar level of like consistency with her ult if we did that to her as well?
Well, there you can bring back Dante's flame guns. Like when she ults, she gets flame guns afterwards for a little bit, just to give her that little bit of juice. Bogur, how do you feel about the Doomfist?
I love Doomfist. I think Doomfist is a great character. I think there's some things people don't like, obviously, and it's annoying when you get road. But in general, I believe Doom is really fun. There's high amount of skill expression, which makes it really cool to look at and also do. And I wish more tanks were like that. I really like the amount of movement you can do, the verticality, the feints, as Frido said. I think it's a really cool character, and I don't know. Maybe some minor changes are needed, but nothing too much, because I think it's one of those characters that are really difficult. But if you over buff him, the character becomes way too easy to get value on, and then the people that really are good at the character can no longer express their skills because they get drowned by all of the other people that are just abusing the character to climb really high. And I don't want this character to be bad either, because it's just a really cool character to watch and to like. When I play against the Doom and he pops off and rolls my team, I'm always like, damn, this guy's good. Versus a Malga player that just, shoots us down and kills us all, or like Risa. There's still skill expression, but it's nowhere near the same level, and I just really like Doomfist. Also, I'm gonna go to the bathroom. Just F1.
Okay. Just what? That's the biggest tank nerf right there. Flats, how about you?
Doomfist is a hard hero to play for a lot of people, myself included. Like at least a high level, I can't really if I log Doom in your game, it's over. But the thing is with that is players don't even see Doom that often, and then when they do see Doom, like 9, like maybe like what, let's say up to like maybe like plat diamond at least. Like you get a Doom on your team, there's a 50-50 shot. Like if that, hell, there's an 80-20 shot. That guy's terrible, or like an alt account Andy who's just like insanely good at Doom, and it's like 80% of the time you have the shit guy who doesn't know anything and has got inspired by seeing some Doom clips that look really cool, and they just hit all of their buttons like they're playing a fighting game as fast as they possibly can, and they just they punch someone to a wall, but then they instantly explode and they get no kill, and it's like, well, okay, well, you got negative value basically. And because of that, people really like have such skewed like polarizing skewed perceptions of the hero, where it's like they're either shit or they're insane depending on like where you are. And I think that's cool, but also like it's not great, because you have to kind of decide at that point, like, how are you going to balance that hero? Like, are you going to balance it around the insanely good players that like they have to hit like every combo, hit every shot and be perfect to get value, or do you balance it around people that actually can like play it to a reasonable level? And it's like, well, you have to balance it around the people that are going to like the top level people, because if you don't, then if you balance around like where everyone else is, those top level people will just go be above and beyond destroying, you know? Like even if you talk about like, even if you make like Rissa really strong at like like mid rank, at high level play, like yeah, she's going to probably be played every game, but she's not going to be like 1v5ing your team. But a Doomfist, though, that's really fucking good. If Doomfist is really strong in like your metal rank area, we could 1v5 people at the top level, like no problem. So it's tough, and it's like I feel bad for Doom players, but I also like you're kind of playing a hero that can't be moved, and there's nothing to do about it because the numbers are too like the skill expression is so tight, and the numbers are so close that if you do touch any of the knobs, like you'll just break him. But the skill expression and the hit is still really cool. So like maybe this is a little bit bad to say, but I don't want any more characters like Doom, because I feel like if you're a Doom player, you're just eternally locked away and your character's not allowed to be good, because if your character's good, it like is almost like Roadhog, where you ruin other people's experience, just not like the same way as Roadhog. Like Roadhog, you just turn your brain off and fucking pull somebody in, but like you have to actually you have to play the game well to get value, which is like still really good. But because of like the opposite end of like how much it shuts down other people's experience, that like can't make it that strong, and so you're just eternally stuck as being like mid to low tier, and like I feel bad for you, but like that's where you're stuck, you know? So
I think it's rare that we can find a singular human to balance a hero off of. But I think we balance Doomfist based off of is Zebra still playing this guy or not. Because that guy does not fucking complain. And I raided him one day, and he was fucking playing Sigma, and he was like, oh man, like, I wasn't even having fun on Doomfist. So like, as long as Zebra's like floating in top 10, like Zebra's like the peak, right? It's like, if he can like float in top 10 and he's like just about hanging in the top lobbies, I'm like, all right, Doom is fine. Cause like, okay, Zebra's still playing him. He's good there. He's good when you're absolutely goated, but like he's kind of trash in plat. That's peak. Cause I'm like a Doomfist apologist. I think Doomfist, one of the most fun heroes in Overwatch, personally. Like as Frito said, like learning Doomfist the high. Like I never thought I'd be a Doomfist player coming out of Overwatch 1 when like he was so bad in Overwatch 1 is like to go against. Like the DPS Doomfist was just, the people who did not play Overwatch 1 do not understand how much people hated DPS Doomfist. And I bring this up every time, and I will continue to iterate it every time, because people forget. In Overwatch 1, anytime I would ever ask a support player, who do you hate the most? Which character do you hate the most? Without fail, DPS Doomfist, delete that guy. He makes me want to uninstall the game. Fuck that guy. So I think they did a great job transferring him into tank Doomfist. And you're right that all you guys kind of brought this up, that he's really on a razor's edge. So I think like I'm totally fine with him being a niche pick. It reminds me a lot of Ball in Overwatch 1, where it's like the only people who really should be playing this guy are the people who like completely know everything, like the people who study the tech of like where you grapple and how you get to this spot. Doom is like the one hero, like 2 fights, like not even 2 fights, 2 seconds into the game, you're like, you can tell, is this guy absolute garbage on Doomfist, or does he know what he's doing? Like you'll just see it in the first engagement. He slams in, punches well. You're like, this guy's dog shit. We'll farm him. He's gonna swap off to Hog. Don't worry. Like 10 seconds, he's gonna swap to Hog. Don't worry. So TLDR, I like Doom. if Zebra's happy but not OP, then we're good. And that's my barometer. Okay, let's move on to Junker Queen. Junker Queen being the next tank. Bogur, I'm gonna take it to you first. How do you feel about Junker Queen?
I like Queen. I think it's a fun tank. I think she fits in a lot of situations, especially in push maps and whatsoever. I'm not talking about like meta-wise. I'm not too sure what the meta is. I think it's from Atra, but I think she's a good tank. I think she's not too OP right now. I think she's really fun. It's really fun when you get an axe and the cooldown, gets reduced. Hitting the knives is really fun. Landing the shots is really fun. Her ultimate is a little bit cooked in the sense that there's just so many things that just denies the value of it, but it's still cool to land it. Custa mentioned a while ago that he wishes it was unstoppable, so it doesn't get stunned. But I'll be honest, I don't like things like that too much because it denies counterplay. I just wish things like magnetic grenade wouldn't cancel it, right? I think that's way too stupid. And I think right now, maybe she's struggling a bit because she doesn't have any armor, right? Because tanks with armor are really strong right now. So I think maybe if they add a little bit of armor to her, I think that would be fine. Maybe change some of her HP to armor. That would be good. Otherwise, I think it's a good tank. I also, another thing just to mention, I just really dislike one aspect of her and of other tanks. I dislike when they have no vertical mobility. I just like mobile characters, so that is one thing I don't like about her. But I think if they give her armor, I think she'll still be pretty decent. I don't think it's a bad tank right now, to be honest.
Maybe if she shouts looking at the ground, it like boops her up. There you go. There's a buffer.
That would be
there.
fun. Yes, exactly.
Danteh. Now you brought this up very early in the call where you said like, well, a lot of the tanks who don't have armor, they're struggling post armor changes. Like, is that how you feel about Junker Queen?
I haven't really seen her much in pro play, but I imagine that's probably why she's not good. I think Queen should be one of the rush tanks that's like meta more often than not. I feel like Queen has good skill expression, like hitting knives and stuff. It doesn't feel that bad playing in a Queen, but tanks like Orisa and Maga, it's like, dude, it feels awful to play into those tanks. So I think they should balance Queen more aggressively, have her stronger more often because I don't know, it just feels like super fun to play and it's not horrible to play against. Like the knife, it's like, oh, like you go around the corner, like you're not pulled anymore, or like maybe you won't even get pulled that far. Like it's not like a guaranteed death, especially with the HP changes. So I think having Queen meta more often is good. And the ult is like always hard countered by everything in the game, so it doesn't even matter. Like there's so much counterplay. Like that could be the only annoying part, but it's like I feel like she's a pretty honest hero, and I think they should balance her more aggressively.
What do you think it is that she suffers against like these Orisa Maugas? Like, what, or like even in the brawl situation? Like, why? Because when we launched Overwatch 2, of course, she was like perma meta for a bit, right? It was like Junker Queen goat. So like, what's changed?
Her shot was just really OP before, but now it's not that OP. I think they're like working towards making her axe and stuff stronger with like the lower cooldowns. I think the shout is kind of annoying, so you don't want that too strong. You want her to be stronger, but you just have to find a middle ground. I think maybe giving her some armor, probably buffing her combat a little bit, and maybe like a small shout buff. And then that's good, perfect. Don't make shout too strong though, because that's probably the most frustrating thing about her.
The pro player PTSD, like don't make shout too strong.
Yeah.
Yeah, I also I think most people would be pretty happy with like, yeah, Queen is one of those tanks that everyone's not offended by. Like it's like you said, I think honest hero. I think most people would enjoy her being played a lot, but maybe that's not the case. Frida, how do you feel?
Another insane skill expression character. I feel like I struggle to know how to like keep up with her when she's on the enemy team, like rolling my team. Like I feel I don't play against many of them. I play against a lot of Doomfists actually, but once in a while I get a Queen that is just like, I don't know, she's so immediate with how she can insta kill things and go in. I think another one of these tanks that I would suggest tank players learn, because as like a rank up tank, like having a defensive ult and your own high damage and sustain, and then the fight turning capabilities of your ult once you lifesteal, like another character that I think is the pinnacle of what, if we're going to say there's like tanks left behind, like she's like the opposite of that. She's like the designed to be able to have solo impact and kind of carry the game with precision mechanics and hero shooter stuff. none of this is really balance concern, right? I'm just kind of like talking about like where she stands in the role. That's Hero.
Yeah, again, a hard one to get right, I guess, as well, because you don't want to overtune any part of her kit. And as you guys said, like the ult is so easily countered, but then if it wasn't countered, people would be really mad. Like early on Overwatch 2, people before we had Kiriko, right? They knew they were gonna drop Kiriko, but there was this like, oh, the anti-nade is so like the anti-effect is so OP, like there's nothing we can do. Well, now there's Kiriko, as you said, Bogur. There's the Magno Bang. There's also like Orisa spin and stuff. Like you can just like stand in front of her and spin, and it's like you're not going anywhere, but he like sees your resistance.
I think one good thing, just to add on, quick thought, Costa said unstoppable. I think maybe not unstoppable, so you can still stun it, but maybe she can't be booped while she's ulting. I think that would be a good middle ground, because it's really annoying getting booped off and like missing completely. Either way, yeah.
Yeah, maybe, or like, yeah, just like limit exactly the number of things that can counter. It feels like there's too much. Flats, how about you? Do you feel like she's in a fair place?
Yes and no. I mean, obviously, not having armor is going to be a big thing. I think Queen's like the pinnacle of like what tank should be. Very fun, super high skill expression when you actually get to like play the game and actually do things. Queen's top tier. The Carnage change that they made a while ago, where when you hit people, like depending on who you hit, like you get a shorter cooldown. Fucking awesome. So what Bogur saying with the ult, all I can think of is the Emon clip of going 90 degrees off King's Row and just off the map in that OWCS match. That was something. Do you guys like the armor changes?
I like the fact that I can't get poked out by a lot of annoying characters like Tracer, but the other side of it is that you get burst down a lot faster because you take way more damage from big projectiles or things that do a lot of damage at once. So I like them, but I like them in the perspective of being a Winston player. I think it's really good because my most annoying things were, Tracers, Sombras, Reapers, Maugas, Divas, and all of these characters can't really deal with me. And the other characters, I can just dive them.
Actually, this is a good point. I actually neglected to bring this up as a dedicated section, so we'll do that now. I think we got a good idea of Junker Queen there, but the armor changes and also the HP changes, like the healing, because now the tanks heal more passively. Let's kind of dwell on those for a second. Flats, you kind of brought it up. Danteh, how about you? How do you feel about the armor changes as like an overall good for tank? Yes or no?
Yeah, I like them. I think good for tank. There's a lot of times, at least in pro play, the way the metas are like right now is you just it's like a ground tank mirror, and then Tracer always takes an angle, and then their hit scans on one side, and like you just poke their tank, take all the space, and like that's kind of how it is. But it feels like you don't get forced out by a Tracer just blinking like to the side of you anymore. Like before, it was like Tracer had so much control over where you could play on tank. It's like if there's a spot where your team can't shoot out the Tracer, you have to back up because you just can't play there anymore. But now you can actually just tank the Tracer for a little bit, and it makes it feel a lot better in general. So I think it's good. It kind of creates an issue with balancing though, because now all the tanks that don't have armor are like a lot weaker than the ones that do. So I think once they fix the balance, it'll be good.
Flats, is that kind of where your question was heading to? Because I feel like the way you worded it, you're not 100% sold on them.
Yeah, I mean, okay, this goes a lot deeper. Because like I think it's good and bad. Because when I first looked at like the Cactus Puppy spreadsheet, I was like, oh, lovely. I'm going to be taking way more damage from Pharah, way more damage from Sojourn, way more damage from Cassidy right clicks. Like, and Cass is already really good. Like, you just get the fucking spamming right click idiot who's not even good. Like, they just right click you from a mile away because the bolts are massive, and it's just like that part is just ass. But like, I hated that part about the Tracer stuff. Like, it was the worst. You just stand there and you're just getting tickled down, and you're like, I can't do anything. I can't fight back. So like that part is really great. But then, I was reading the Reddit AMA before we started. I didn't get to finish it, and it's like talking about like Reaper reworks and like trying to like rework his Shadow Step. And then I think about it as like also it made it better versus Bastion slightly. It's like, why do we even have tank busters anymore? And basically my whole idea was like, and the reason why I even think about armor and think about all this stuff is I think the whole point of armor should be for those more pellety, annoying ass characters. But against the hard burst, what do you do versus that now? Because that 30% was massive, and like that was like the big shtick going into Overwatch 2. Like in a lot of ways, like the armor that we have now is a nerfed version of armor, in my opinion. Overall, it's just much better versus those flanker characters because they were dictating the way the game was played. But if all of a sudden Tracer fell off a cliff tomorrow, you're just taking more damage all of a sudden, right? And it's like they try to compensate for that with the 25% headshot change, but it's like you're still taking about the same amount of damage if you're getting headshot as you were before, but you're taking way more body damage shot. And so like it almost rewards you for not hitting headshots, and like especially in your like metal ranks, most people don't hit a lot of headshots, so they're probably taking even more damage on average than they were taking before. So they're probably having a shit time, and they're going to be even more mad about tank. And at higher level, you kind of understand it, right? Like, you know, if you were peeking a Casty or Sojourn or Soldier, whatever, they were probably hitting mostly headshots on you anyways as tank. But as you like go down the ranks, like you're probably exploding a lot faster. So the reason why I'm not sold is just I'm worried about like you just exploding a little bit more, and so I wonder with the DPS passive, you're getting less healing and you're getting poked. That's the scary part of the Tracer now, plus high impact damage. So you don't have you traded the mitigating factor of the high impact damage for the low impact damage, and now it's just like almost like a pick your poison. And so far it seems good because Tracer was good, but if Tracer wasn't good, I think it would have been worse. But also, what if you just gave characters that didn't have armor? Like now we can kind of start talking, I guess. Do you rebalance the way armor is on certain characters? You know, like is there a world where tanks start having way more armor now? Like, would that be insane? Right? Like, you know, should a Tracer be able to really fuck with a tank that hard? Like the Tracer's whole shtick is dueling and flanking and getting on supports and all that stuff. You know, now are you in a world where tank armor starts to look like divas? You know.
Bogur, you got your hand up.
I just wanted to say that I don't know if they fixed it, but there was a moment after they released the thing. I think the characters that didn't do 2x multiplier for headshot would still do the full amount of damage. Like characters that do 1.5x when they headshot, they still did the full amount and their damage didn't get reduced. But I don't know if they fixed that. So it was both a question and the statement that maybe it feels a little bit worse because also some of the characters still do full damage in the head plus burst here.
I'm not sure about that one. I mean, coupled with the armor changes are those headshot changes, and you know, even if you don't benefit from the armor change, you do, I guess, benefit from the headshot change. Frida, how have you felt about the combination of those two? Because those two are the like reduced damage tanks are taking changes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you think they've kind of done the right thing for the game?
Certainly interesting, and I think the community really hasn't adjusted yet, like in mass overall, because there's a few. I noticed like a lot of tanks assume they can frontline face tank forever like they used to, and they just get poked out now. And we should have maybe seen this coming because it was all in the numbers, but what it incentivizes you to do is like engage and get out because you have the self-heal thing that's like baked into their intention. So tanks that do that in theory should be better. I certainly like that when the enemy counter picks, like one counter pick against Winston doesn't make you feel like you have to swap, in my opinion. I think you could play around like one. They'll have to go multiple.
Yeah, it has to be multiple. I don't think there's one character right now that will make me 100% swap.
Yeah, and maybe we can say that means those heroes are kind of useless now, and then people are whining that Reaper doesn't instantly counter Winston anymore. But I kind of like that in a way because I'm trying to decide like what do I want from the game, and I think what the armor changes does is, and I said this about Diva earlier, it's like you gotta like pick your matchup that you know you can win, like go at that harder. Like that's more about what Overwatch 2 is, as opposed to trying to secure the whole team formation and expect to keep everybody alive in the ult fight. That just doesn't happen. Instead, you gotta like go at the thing that you're going to win against. And so this kind of incentivizes that a bit more. We'll say Cassidy, utter bullshit. Fan the Hammer. I wish Fan the Hammer somehow was like Tracer's damage. Like you shouldn't just be able to go roll, reload. Reload's kind of quick too. It's like a second, reload again. It's like that utter nonsense. Utter nonsense. He's already tanky enough as he is. He's a tank as well with the roll, and then he's got his ult. Oh wait, there's another that he could do potentially, and you can barely damage him in those instances as well. That's utter BS. Like I'm shocked that this feels like a foresight. Is that the right word? Undersight. Not enough caffeine in me. I can't remember my English words anymore. Oversight. There we go. Thanks, team. Feels like an oversight. Yeah. We removed the like range burst from the game, and then all of a sudden like these medium range pressure damage are now. It's kind of like what Flat said. These medium range pressure damage characters are the ones that are going to dominate you. That you kind of have to be afraid of. Like, can you like dive a cast? Like, not really. Like you used to be able to maybe because you would hard take 30% less damage, but now you kind of can't. So still adjusting to the changes overall. They're kind of interesting. They make like textured matchups as opposed to these flat rules, and I think that is something they should do more. Like remove the roll passive. We've been saying this forever. Individual matchups would be better for this game that we have with so many characters and more getting added. Bogur was trying to respond.
I want to say about Cassidy, I really have a lot of fun playing Cassidy, and I just really despise his right click and his magnetic grenade, and I think those things need to be changed. But outside of that, I think it's really fun to play Cass. I think like just the walking around and shooting stuff, it feels really good. But the right click is bullshit. I agree, and the magnetic grenade is such a stupid ability. I hate it so much. You just throw it out and it's like rolling in a casino, and then it's like a 50% chance that you just get a free kill and a 50% chance you waste your ability, but it doesn't matter. And people just throw it out, and there's no skill expression. It's just random. Sometimes it flies to the moon and sticks on Winston, and then the Winston dies because he can't move, and he just hard counters characters with this ability. Like sticking that ability to a Doomfist or Avenger is just an insta kill. It's so annoying. Either way, I just want to maybe defend Cassidy a bit, but yeah, those two abilities I think need a change.
They did say in the AMA that the flashbang's kind of reverting a little bit, so hopefully that helps.
I mean, it's kind of annoying though, because this was like those were the two dumb aspects of his kit, even in Overwatch 1. Like I remember hating the flash fan back then. It was like super dumb back then, and like we're kind of changes along the line, and still like, yeah, the E plus right click is fucking obnoxious, and the roll into the right click is fucking obnoxious. So I hope in the DPS debate we will have a dedicated section hating on Cassidy and that fucking juiced up motherfucker. But let's go back to the tank on armor changes. Danteh, anything else you want to add on the armor plus headshot changes before we move on to the health stuff?
No, I said everything.
Okay, so let's talk then quickly about the healing as well. I don't think this should be too long of a discussion, but they, changed the healing passive so that now tanks heal more proportionately before than like the puny 10 HP they used to heal. Has this kind of helped as well with the situation for tanks? Like, can you survive a little bit more on your own? Flats, I'll go to you first.
It was same shit when Aaron accidentally clickbaited himself with the whole fucking passives thing. And everyone's like, "Oh my god, this is gonna be so broken." It's like, yeah, for a couple heroes, it's kind of decently like okay, but like the only difference is now that if I'm in between fights and my supports aren't back yet, I start the fight at full health, or as opposed to half or 3/4. Like, and it's a little bit better. And but other than that, though, you don't really have time in the mid-fight to ever sit there for 5 seconds and let the thing kick in, unless you're playing Rhine in solo queue and everyone's playing deathmatch and you're half HP and the guy who was shooting you is dead. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, wait, nobody notices me for a second. And then you just like hide in the corner and just like wait. And it's like, okay, I guess like 1 out of like 20 games you get like a nice situation where you get healed almost back to full and then go back in, but like not really.
Does anyone feel like it strongly influenced the game either way?
I like it. I like it a lot. I would disagree with Flats here. I think it depends on the character you play, but for Winston and Bo, for example, I've had some fights be won purely because of this passive. Because, the fight happens, I take a lot of damage, I get a kill, I jump off, it's scrappy, but I still get enough time to actually heal up. And when they come to push me, they're either caught off guard or I can engage afterwards. There have been situations where I felt so blessed to have that passive when playing Bo or Winston. So I actually
How
like it a lot
often,
on
though?
tank. It's not that often, but it's a good quality of life change, right?
Yeah.
I don't think it was supposed to be game breaking, but it's not often. It's not something that makes the role broken, but it is really nice when it happens, and it makes me happier. It makes me feel a lot more self-sufficient in situations where I don't need to beg for heals. I can just get healed myself and then re-engage, right? And also allows my team to do other stuff. So I like it.
Yeah, I think it like serves its purpose. Like, say your supports get picked or something, and then everyone's like weak. Like, you just like go chill. Like, let them heal your DPS. DPS can still fight for the space. You heal up, you go around a corner, and then you peek again. Like you're like full HP. Where that fight is just like completely unwinnable before. But if you just don't take damage and like let your DPS like take some aggro and stuff, like it's fine. I think it just helps with unfortunate things like that, or with the new support changes. Like there are a lot of times where everyone is extremely low, so you just like you have to let your hit scan keep fighting, or else they'll just walk up for free. You just don't take damage, and then yeah, I mean it's better than what it was before. So I don't have an issue with that. I think it's pretty helpful actually.
Nice. Frito, any
I'd like
more thoughts before we move on? Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say I'd expand on what Bogur said and say specifically, we kind of talked about this earlier with the dive maps. Like on dive maps where you want to stage, it really matters to me, I think, because oftentimes while you're setting up, like maybe your teammate dies, and it basically just means you can spawn a health pack on yourself rather than needing to go find one in a very specific location. So staging as any of the like engaged dive tanks, Winston, Doomfist as I've been playing, that helps a lot. I also think a low key buff is like playing with support comps that don't really help you. It gives you a little bit more flexibility on what you're going to do, and you can kind of go on an island on yourself. I think one character that maybe benefits from that more than we would like is Roadhog, because he already was doing that, and it's like he's got another breather in a way, like so that he can hold a breather longer. I think that's low key like one of the mistakes. That's another oversight I think of the patch, that because he already could go lurk somewhere and hide on a corner. Like if I've been watching Six a lot play, because Hog is one of my go-to BS heroes that I attempt, and like it surprises me like how long he'll wait on a in a position and just pop out hook and then hide, right? So it's like if you can't really poke him out, and then his character, because they're bursty in nature, Hog, he doesn't need to necessarily be doing much because his kill potential happens in a big burst, right? It's not like he needed to manipulate the space of the fight in order to get his team in. He is the team in a way where he's got the damage, so he doesn't have to be doing it. So anyway, we'll talk about Hog later. I think guy needs to be nerfed a bit, but
we will. Oh, we will. Don't you worry. Wouldn't be a podcast hosted by me if we didn't have a little bit of time bitching about Roadhog. Okay, let's go on first though to Mauga. So, I'm gonna take it to Danteh first. Danteh, thoughts on Mauga?
Never have that hero good. Just never, please. It's boring to play. It's boring to play against. No one has fun when Mauga's in the game. That's like end of conversation. Nothing else. Make him never good. Maybe like niche in like metal ranks. Done.
I think we can move
All
on. I
I
think
have
we're
to
good.
Yeah.
Okay, listen. At the beginning, I actually liked Mauga, but over time, I kind of realized he's a stupid hero. But I'm gonna defend Mauga a bit. I think there's a lot of cool things about him, but not in the way he is right now. I think I like his charge in the sense that you can climb stuff and things, but I think right now he's so one-dimensional and boring. And when he's meta, you just have two Maugas just shooting each other, and that's also really boring. So I agree. I think he should be a niche character, but I think they should add a little bit more skill expression to him in one way or another. I'm not sure what. Or maybe just keep him like the Moira of tanks, you know? Maybe. I don't know. But yeah, I agree. Don't make him meta.
That spot is already taken, buddy. There's already a reset. There's already Hog. We got the Moira tanks
Yeah,
already.
yeah, maybe. Just delete Mauga then. Fuck it.
It's too many Moiras.
Just get him out. Get rid of him.
I mean, the good thing about Mauga is because he's still the latest tank hero, isn't he? Yeah, because he's the newest tank hero. There isn't a community of one tricks who are gonna be mad at us for shitting on Mauga a little bit. I don't think so. I don't think there's. Like,
I think if there isn't a community of one tricks that support a hero, I think that hero is shit. Okay, I think for example, we don't really have big Orisa defenders. I think like it's a very small community, and the same goes for Mauga and stuff. So I think those characters are a little bit cooked. But one counter argument for Mauga is that I think he's one of the few tanks that actually kind of maybe does a better job at dealing with Pharah Mercy, because you can poke out the Mercy, get her to burn, then she can self-heal and maybe secure a kill. So maybe in that sense. So I don't know. I think maybe one thing they should do about Mauga is make him more reliable at like shooting targets from a long range and make him less focused on spraying the tanks and spraying up close. So more rewarding whenever you know shoot people far and burn them and then you right click them and then the other way around. Yeah, either way.
That's fair. Flats, Frito, anything you want to add significantly on Mauga?
Balancing Nightmare, because like the time to kill to carry the game requires such a high level of tracking that I think it's gonna be kind of hard for them to do what Danteh said, where I just think he's like, there's other heroes that kill things easier for less effort aim wise, but he's an aim hero at the same time. So I don't know what the hell they do with him, because I think we all would want him to be more about like the left click, right click, as opposed to the dreaded hold both down on the enemy tank, and even worse, the Mauga mirror, which is probably some of the worst gameplay in the history of Overwatch. So I don't know what they do necessarily. I don't have an answer for that, because like I try to play Mauga and my aim's like just barely can't keep up. You know, a lot of people gave my man Metro trash for getting to top 6 in the Mauga meta, and they make claims. Like I try to say, it's like, listen, I peaked 4.4k on Orisa in double shield. Okay, utterly bullshit. So I remember the times when easy tank heroes dominated the game. I could never aim as good as Metro can. It's not gonna happen. So on one hand, you've got this skill expression of like his target changing, move this, move that, manage that. Oh, the guy over here, change target. I can't. I physically cannot do that. But that's what the character is, and it's like the hero fantasy is all that. How do you fix that? I don't know. Like either he's good or bad, and I don't know how you make him like not oppressive at higher tiers. He's a design nightmare, because like some of his best kit is like being unstoppable to run away from things that normally would clear a tank, especially ultimates. I think that's a problem. Like there's just so many problems with his kit for the top 1% versus 99%, where either they don't have the skill to actually access what his kit's supposed to do, don't have the teamwork to access the shout, and then on the other hand, when you do have those things and he's any good, he's like oppressive and obnoxious, and nobody likes him. So I have no idea what they do to this hero. He's kind of cool though. Like in theory, I think it'd be better if he was like the kind of hero that's like in ranked, you can pick him to do a specific thing. Like that's fine. It's like if you want to be the one to shoot the flyer character, there you go. Like that's what he probably should be, and no more than that.
Well, I mean, I think Dante's already spelled out what we should do with the hero, but Flats, anything else you want to add on that before we move on?
Yeah, I'm not even gonna give it that much. I don't even want to give it that much of what Frito was saying, the credit. Fuck that hero. It's the worst designed hero in Overwatch.
Wow.
Not even fucking close. It's a poorly designed hero from the ground up. They were originally apparently supposed to release Mauga in season 2 over Ramacho, and they swapped the two. Thank fucking Jesus, because my god, they would have drove this game to the ground so damn fast if that was the first hero they released. Take him out to the farm with Orisa and Hog and put him down. That's it. I'm sorry. That's literally the only way you do it.
The worst character?
It's literally a dumb fucking numbers character, and the entire character centers around standing in front of their tank, bullying their tank until you get low, popping your E, life stealing yourself back up to full. Your teammates either standing around you and you're pushing or whatever, but the entire playstyle is just bully the fucking other tank into them not playing the game. It's Orisa 2.0 if you think about it in a lot of ways. Character's trash. I don't care about the burn. I don't care about the other thing. You get way more value just walking and going, aha! That's it. It's just, that's the gameplay loop. It gives me a fucking headache.
What about his ult?
I would the ult's cool. The ult's cool.
Yeah, it's so cool. And I get locked in
is
a cage and I can't use my
It's
any
an
abilities.
insta-kill. It's an insta-kill, though.
The ult
There's
is
no
cool.
counterplay. There's no counterplay, though.
Yeah. There's no else to counterplay, but that's the point. It's supposed to be a cage match, and I understand like, what they're going for. But like the whole thing's fucking stupid. Like from the top down. Hell, even though the ultimate is fun and really fucking cool, and like probably the best thing about him, it's still fucking stupid. Like you know what I mean? Like, you know, locking you in, you can't fucking move, you can't use your abilities. It's got a 2500 shield. It lasts for 8 or 10 seconds, whatever the fuck it is. Like, you know, and the worst thing of all time is when you got 2 Sims and they both wall, and you got 2 Echoes and they both copy the Maugas, and they jump in, and there's 6 shields, and it's like, Overwatch 1 couldn't have done that. Like, that's how bad it looks. So, fuck that hero. Take him out. Put him in the farm. Literally should never be meta. Am I on it? If I genuinely was at the wheel, I would take him out. I'd just take him out of the game.
Mauga,
has
right?
no place.
Mauga or Brigida at launch, which is worse?
No, Brig at launch 100% was worse. I'm just saying, like,
Brig is the worst release ever in video game history. Like,
yeah,
actual video game history, Brig is like the worst character.
Oh, yeah.
There's nothing that tops it.
Nothing tops that.
I agree.
That is like that's a different conversation. You know what I mean? Like, just because Mauga's poorly designed isn't like, like we're not talking like fucking nuclear bomb level Brig. Like that's a
Hydrogen bomb versus
different.
Coughing baby.
Actually,
Yeah.
Actually, that's the difference.
So,
Exactly.
anyways, fuck that character.
I noticed that when Dante's hate intensifies, he just like slowly zooms into the camera himself. He's just like, I want to fucking cook this fucking hero. I noticed it a couple of times with Mauga talk. Anything else you want to add? You started this, Dante.
No, I don't want to talk about that hero anymore. I'm not even gonna address or the name. I don't want to talk about him. Go next. Go next.
Won't even speak the
Stop.
name.
Yeah.
Okay, well, another beloved hero then, Orisa, is who we move on to next. Frida, why don't you start us off talking about some Orisa?
I don't know what she does anymore. Like, kind of sucks. It's kind of great. I don't have many more opinions. Like, I think like her offense is kind of okay, I guess. Like, she has no range fall off. Like, I can't really justify why. I think she's like one of those tanks that, in theory, you would hold the front line and poke, but then now armor's worse against poke. So what are you even fighting as this character? I kind of don't know. I don't know what to make of her. Didn't want to play her before. So this is actually one I avoided playing, even when she was really good. So I can't say I'm an expert.
Bogur, what is Orisa all about?
I think Orisa is like, in my eyes, the perfect vision of how Orisa should be is that Orisa is this really handicapped character where if nothing else works, you go Orisa. But you should not be able to like really solo carry with her. And I think her main strength is just being like really hard to kill. And I think it's really bad whenever she can like one-shot people or do insane amounts of damage because she's supposed to be really tanky. I think that was one of the big problems was she was really, really tanky. It was way too tanky, right? And she still could get some value. But I think it's just this anchor tank where she just never dies, stays alive, rotates cooldowns. But she should never be meta, and she should be like a last resort pick where you don't know what else to pick. So if, for example, the enemy team goes hard counter swap comp with a lot of damage, you can go Orisa just to stay alive. Because every other pick, you're just gonna insta die. I think that's how I view Orisa, but it should never be something that you always go in every match because the hero is inherently really, really boring, especially in a mirror matchup. And she should not be meta. I think it should be, as I said, just niche character that you pick sometimes.
I'm gonna take this over to Dante for a second because we've kind of discussed this topic on the podcast amongst ourselves a fair few times. I'm curious what Dante's opinion is. Dante, do you think there should be like a hierarchy? Because even so far in this call, we've kind of shit on a few heroes, right? We've been like, oh well, fuck, the he whose name must not be mentioned. You're like, fuck that guy.
Yeah.
We're kind of like, fuck Orisa. We kind of said, oh, Doomfist, maybe let's not make sure he's like not too OP. Do you think there should be like this hierarchy of fun? Because people will be like, you guys are fucking gatekeeping everything.
Yeah, I mean, I think for sure. Like when heroes like Sombra, Hog, Maga, heroes like that are meta, people just don't have fun. People don't have fun playing them. People don't have fun playing against them. It's bad for the game. People play less. It definitely needs to be that way. I think some of them are debatable. Like some people are gonna be like, oh, I hate playing against Doom. Some people are gonna be like, oh, I hate playing against Orisa. Probably most people. So I think you can have those heroes meta more. But you definitely need the honest heroes to be meta more for people to like keep playing and having fun. Because I don't know. I personally, when Orisa's perma-meta, I like that hero outside of perma-meta. But when it's a mirror, Orisa, every single time, I'm like, okay, I don't even want to play anymore. Like, but when I play her like once a map, like once every like 2 hours or something, I'm like, okay, this hero's like actually pretty fun. Like, it's probably not fun for the other team because it's getting like speared into a wall and then one shot it's just not fun. So I can understand people not wanting to play against it, but it's not bad to play when you don't have to play at every map.
And where do you draw the line of like the honest hero? Like what differentiates in your mind the honest hero versus the dishonest heroes?
High skill cap, and it doesn't feel like, oh wow, I just got cheesed. Like you play against like a Zarya, it's like she just beams you down and kills you. It's like, okay, like I mean, I could have got healed. I could have like did this better. I could have done this. But a Orisa spear, one hit, it's like, okay, well, how do I even play against that? Or like Maga, it's just a mirror where it's just like boring. You just shoot the other tank. There's like not much counterplay. It's just one dimensional. You do one thing, and I think designs like that are not fun to play against. Like one hits and boring designs. So
Boring, and I guess you're saying skill expression, right? Like when a hero doesn't have much skill expression, like you can't, like the good players
Yeah,
and the
that too.
bad players kind of look the same.
Yeah.
So that's fair. That's fair. Flats. Any thoughts on the cow?
Take all 3 of them out back. I'll do it. If you guys are too scared, I'll do it. Give me the gun. I'll handle it. Okay, just cover your ears. Cover your ears. I'll handle it. I'll make sure they're gone. They'll never come back. Because if maybe it's a little bit harsh, but like for a little bit there, Overwatch 1 Orisa and Overwatch 2 Orisa were kind of two sides of the same coin. Where in Overwatch 1, you were shooting the shield the entire time until the shield went down, and then you shoot the Fortify Orisa. And then when the Fortify Orisa is gone, there's another shield. And it's like you're not doing anything. You're just shooting shields the entire time. But in Overwatch 2, you're shooting the spinny, so you're not doing anything to the spinny spear. Then they pop Fortify, and it's like, okay, doing absolutely fuck all during the Fortify. And then you go to shoot them again after, and then they got the spinny back up, and then it's like, oh shit, I lost track of them for a half second. They went around a corner. Where the fuck? And then you peek back around the corner, get speared back, and you're like, okay, I lived, but now I'm gonna kill you. And then, oh, just kidding, bitch. I actually have my spinny back up again. And then spins over, Fortify again. Now get fucked. And it's like,
no.
yeah, it's just
Put it all again.
Oh yeah, using your ult as another Fortify, which was the best thing about it. And then they buffed it. And then it became actually like kind of spooky. If you got pulled into it, you're like, oh, I actually might die now. And then they also made it go through shields, and it's like just like the power creep over time of Orisa, and it just then you can poke too. Like the whole point of Orisa, like when they reworked or in Overwatch 2, was supposed to be like another brawl tank. And honestly, like Ryan and Orisa had like a pretty good matchup. Like they were like you could go either way when Overwatch 2 first came out. And then very quickly it just became Orisa dominating, and just like it pushed so far, and it's just nobody has fun with that. You're shooting a fucking brick wall, and it's like it's sort of the same thing as shooting shields. Like you're getting a little bit of feedback because you're doing damage, but like you were doing damage to shield, just weren't getting feedback. That's kind of how I felt about it, at least. So fuck Orisa, never should be meta. Take them out back, I'll handle it.
And are you happy with her power level now? Like roughly, you think she's okay?
I think she's sneaky good. I think if you bump into someone who really knows how to play Orisa, like they can surprise you. The problem is though, is the public perception is she's fucking shit, which as it should be. Like it's where it is. But like in certain situations, I think it can work. And it's like, I think most people view Orisa right now as so terrible. Don't pick the hero. You're just going to insta lose. But that's not the truth. The truth is actually like there is some small areas and some small spaces, but like because Orisa is such like when you think about Orisa, it's like fucking so dreadful that it's like you can only ever think, is she fucking broken right now or is she unplayable right now? There can't be anywhere in between, because she just like, if there's an in between, that means she's playable, and if she's playable, that means she's coming for your ass, and like you can't. There's nowhere to hide.
I mean, this is where we should spread misinformation, I think, because this is like,
yes.
Orisa,
Hog,
never play them, guys. This is don't play them. Just they're so bad, you'll auto lose. Please, just don't.
Yep.
This has been a very ominous podcast of you, though, Flats. Like, you're kind of talking about killing these characters earlier when you were talking about like, if Tracer were to fall off a cliff tomorrow, I was like a little bit worried. If Tracer's a real person, I'd be like checking her affairs are in order. It's just like,
recall.
if she were to fall off a cliff tomorrow, like, it wouldn't be so bad. Yeah, it just recalls. That would be funny. Okay, let's move on then to Ramatra. Frida, I'm going to take it to you. I know you're a big fan of the Ramatra boy. So how do you feel about him right now? Where do you put him right now?
Yeah, so when I made my tier list after the armor changes, I was pretty happy with where I placed a lot of the characters, because I made it before other creators made theirs. And a big percentage of my takes, I think, were close to accurate to high-level players' opinions, except Ramatra, where I did not adapt my gameplay to the early changes to realize like a few key things about his kit. So I wanted to tag this onto the Orisa point as well. A nice thing about Orisa is like she can get poked out, right? So characters that thought their armor could face tank to poke no longer can do that. So as Ram, what you do is like more, if you're going to hold space, like you should probably just like block immediately as opposed to think you're going to poke, because you're just weaker to poke. And then once you do that, and then realized like his punches got a buff against armor, where a lot of other like anti-tank damage got worse. Then there's another benefit there in the tank fight. So Ram's got a lot that he can work with, and you know, he's one of those. He's like the Overwatch 2 main tank, basically, where he's got the options to contribute to different forms of the fight, and then it seems like any character that has a OP damage mitigation ability is like tankable, and yeah, that's kind of where I put him. Like, I feel like I'm getting better at him in this new version of the game, and that's exciting for me because I really like playing the character. I think like the feedback of all of his abilities are fun. Like I love hitting huge snares, or just like basically all the feedback of hitting all of his attacks feels good. So that's why he's my favorite. Also, he's got like a badass character. He's, you know, evil. He's got like a voice interaction with Echo or something like that. I'm trying to recall exactly what it was. It's something like, I'd rather be hated than and be right than loved, and it just feels like me in a nutshell. So yeah.
Yeah. Hopefully you don't start an uprising, but you never know, Frito. It can happen. Dante, how do you feel about Armacho? I feel like I remember you mentioning that, you know, he's got quite a lot of strong suits. Is that still the case?
Yeah, I remember at first I didn't like rush mirrors that much with Ramatra. I feel like the issue with Ramatra rush mirrors, at least in pro play, it's probably a lot different in ranked. Like in ranked, I think he's fun. I think playing the mismatches is especially fun. Like when you play against a Winston, like trying to like mind game the slow and stuff. I think it's really fun. I enjoy a lot of the non mirrors, but the mirrors feels kind of feels like you get punished for doing damage and stuff. Like the better method when you're playing in Ramatra mirror is just to keep your armor, keep your blocking, like always out sustain the other ram, because if you do more damage, you're gonna take more damage, and then you're gonna lose the trade. So that's one issue that I dislike with them, or that I don't like about them, and it's not an issue for most ranks. It's probably not even an issue in like most top 500 games, unless it's like a really high one. Otherwise, I think the hero's really good. I think he's well balanced. I think he has high skill ceiling. His left click's pretty good now. His form's good. I think his slow has insane skill ceiling. Like you can do a lot of crazy stuff with it. Good hero. I like him. Pretty honest. Not like. I think I'd rather have heroes like Zarya meta than him, but I think he's a good hero to have meta. I don't complain about him much.
I'm gonna start asking you for that rating every time. It's like honest or dishonest, Dante. At the end of your call, it's like, yeah, pretty honest, pretty honest. He passes. Bogur?
Hot take, I don't really like Ram that much because I find him really one-dimensional. You can outplay stuff with your, you know, vortex and things, and you can do stuff, but it's like I don't really like characters that don't have verticality, like Ramatra. And second of all, as Dante mentioned, a lot of Ramatra gameplay in high elo just revolves around not taking damage, and it's really annoying. So that I don't enjoy. Maybe in lower ranks it's more fun because you have more freedom to do stuff, and you know, punching stuff is always fun. But I just don't like the gameplay loop, which is, you know, play for Nemesis form, and then you punch, and then you ult, and that's it. I much rather play a different tank, but that's just a personal opinion. If I have to look at a broader sense, I think it's a cool tank. I like, as Dante likes to say, I think it's a honest tank. You know, I don't think there's anything too crazy about it. Maybe the ultimate is sometimes annoying, but you could counterplay it with CC or stunts, or, you know, just playing at a distance or placing a shield down. So, you know, a cool tank. Personally, not the biggest fan, but a nice tank.
Do you think his power level is
Winston.
okay? Oh, sorry, go ahead, Dante.
I was gonna say it's the Winston bias. You can't trust his opinion.
Yeah, true, exactly.
Anything that counters Winston, he's like, oh, I don't like it. I don't like it.
Yeah, well, depends on the map. Depends on the map, you know. You can't really play around on fucking Gibraltar.
Okay,
right?
true, yeah.
But
yeah, it's a space station. Watch their matches. That's all I'll say.
well, right now for pro play, I think Gibraltar is just like hard meta. I think, Dante, right?
Yeah, maybe not on all maps, but like high ground maps, but Winston stuff. Most maps ram though.
Yeah. So balance wise, I think he's strong, but I don't think it's because he's too OP. Like, I think it's just the armor changes and stuff. I don't know. Balance wise, it's just such a small percentage of the game that this applies to. So I don't know what to do, honestly. Because if you nerf him, then he just becomes really bad everywhere else. So I don't know. Not sure what to do exactly. I think he just benefited from the armor changes a lot, probably. And also because Mauga and Orisa, got nerfed.
Flats, where do you feel Ramatra lands right now?
I think he's really good. Like, yeah, well, like one of those things with Ramatra before too was like again like the tracer stuff. Like if you had a tracer that was behind you tickling you, if you were trying to like hold hard frontline or whatever it was, like you couldn't do that because like even with your block, like you don't want to be turning around and blocking. It's typically like a really bad idea. But the only thing I don't like about Ramatra is like in the mirror, just like the constant blocking bullshit. Where you just sit there and kind of like look at each other, and like I can't even tell you sometimes like sometimes if we're both standing there, I'll just stop playing the game and see if the other if I can get the other Ramatra to stop playing the game too. Like if I just go and just like don't move, like I'm not trying to punch, don't try to like move. I just try to see like, are you also like a little bit annoyed that this is our gameplay experience at the moment? And about like every like 1 out of 3 times I get them to do it as well, and we just stand there and we wait until one of us stops and then we start playing the game again. And it's so dumb, but like I like the character, I like the way they're designed, I like the 2 forms, I like having all that stuff. It's just, how do you deal with the blocking aspect as like in the mirrors? I don't really know, because like the part that's really annoying is, at least in a ranked experience, is if one team's deciding to swap and you get like the guy who goes Ana, right? And again, you're trying to do like the blocking shit and you get anti-ed or slept or whatever. You don't have a carry, or your team's not like playing like with you as much. Like you kind of just don't have a great time, and so you're just basically like trying to just stand there and live as long as you can. It's almost like a competition to see like, can I be the last person standing on my team by standing there and doing nothing at all? And I don't think that's great gameplay, but I do enjoy the character. I think he got slandered a little too hard when he first came out. That was the only thing I wasn't fan of. I think everyone kind of hated him at first because the ult mirrors and all that stuff. But do I have fun on Ramatra? Yes, I have a good time on Ramatra, so I like him.
I've noticed, I think, when we talk about tanks, the tanks are kind of okay, but then when it's a mirror matchup, it gets really boring. So it's Ramatra, Orisa, Mauga. Yeah.
About a lot of the tanks. I feel like the rush mirrors specifically, most of the rush tanks, when they get mirrors, it's just not fun. But like playing them into mismatches is always super fun. Like, I don't know.
Because it adds complexity, in my opinion. You can counter stuff, but like when you play Ramatra, you just block. When you play Orisa, Orisa is kind of boring. Mauga, you just shoot. Yeah. So when you play against a different tank, you actually need to think. But when you play against the same matchup, you just shoot each other.
So what you're saying is
one exception.
Oh yeah, go ahead, Flats.
The Ryan exception is the only.
Yeah,
one.
That is
Ryan
true. I agree. Ryan is the best when Ryan v Ryan. Yeah.
We're coming to it. This
I
is
think
gonna be
the Zarya-
Go ahead, Dante.
I think the Zarya matchup's really fun too, with like bubbles and stuff. Yeah, like outplaying the other Zarya with bubble, like managing resource and stuff. I think it's pretty high skill.
Winston v Winston, you ignore each other, or you just poke a bit and then you ignore each other. Yeah.
I was gonna say, and I think Frida would approve. Is like, I was gonna make a slightly facetious point. I was like, what you're saying is we should force some sort of format where asymmetry is mandated. Like, maybe we should make it so you guys can't fucking mirror all the time. But
it was in my pocket, SVB. You kind of just you just robbed me. Yes, exactly. I hate mirrors. I don't like mirroring anything, actually.
Wait, what are you suggesting? You're suggesting that you can't play the same character in the lobby, so only one Roadhog in the lobby. You can't go road v road.
Exclusive pick draft format.
Yeah,
in Dota League. League is the same. Yeah, but maybe
that'd be very interesting.
Maybe I was thinking about the same thing when we were thinking about like crazy ideas. Maybe it could be a good idea, but then here's the counter argument for it. What if there's like a really good comp who chooses to play that comp? Like, imagine Goats is meta again, right? That's the hard meta comp, right? And one team actually, gets to play the other team. What do they do? Do they just lose?
Well, you wouldn't be able to
be snake drafts.
if you're picking back and forth. There's no way.
So you had a banning system as well.
You can have a banning too, yeah. But even if you just had picking, like if let's say it's Goats, right? Let's say just go back for a second because it's easy for us to follow.
Yeah.
They pick Ryan. Well, I pick Diva now, and now you can't have the Goats. And then they'll pick Brig. Well, I'll pick Lucio. Now you can't have like the. So you're already
makes sense.
You're already disassembling the.
Honestly, it could be a good idea for one of the big changes, big patches. Like just implement it, try it out. Maybe make a separate queue just to test it first before you make such a big change. But honestly,
Throw right in. fuck it.
Oh, okay, sure, go right in. I like the idea. I think it could bring a lot of diversity.
I need to retract my previous statement of not liking big changes, because when they're the ideas I like, I think we should do them immediately and as fast as possible. And I'm gonna make 10 videos about why this will save the game now, like I used to in Overwatch 1, because that's what I want. Like, I don't know, this counterpicking thing. It's like people talk trash when you counterpick, but then we complain about mirrors. I don't like mirrors. I try to counterpick, and then I get flamed for doing that. Like I don't know. I'm just trying to play the format that we have.
So if you have the system, can you swap mid game, or is it just locked into one character?
I mean,
I would envision different ways you could do it. Like you could draft a pool of heroes, so maybe some swapping. But the more we do, the more picks or bans you have, the longer that process takes. So it's tricky. This would be several other podcasts worth of discussion that we're opening here. So I'm very passionate about this subject. So I'm sorry, but
Same.
So yeah, there's a lot of ways you could do it. But ultimately, like I think limiting the power of what you pick based on that kind of thing, whether it's bans or draft, would be like, that's my dream for the game, essentially, because then at least we can stop like feeling that there's always an optimal pick waiting and spawn for you, where you can just instantly be like, well, there's an optimal thing. And this was a problem in Overwatch 1 in a different way, and a problem in Overwatch 2 in a different way. Like it's been a problem the whole time.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I actually hosted a tournament in Overwatch 1 where I made this the rule set. Like I made it exclusive pick. Like there's a draft mode, they picked and they banned, and we had a pool that they could swap from. And back then, I mean, the opinion consensus was like, it's fun, but there's not enough heroes. Yeah, well, maybe there's enough heroes now. Who knows? That's for the devs to think about. I think it's a great idea, so hopefully they'll consider it. Let's move on then to the Reinhardt, the one mirror that we kind of said, yeah, this is a fun one of the tank mirrors. So of course I'm gonna have to take it to Flats first. Flats, where is Reinhardt feeling right now?
I think Ryan's good, but like ladder good. I actually have the weird opinion that I think he was better before the armor changes. I think he was sneaky fucking good before the armor changes with the 15%. Like for some reason, like I'm telling you, like you were able to kind of bully people. But people hadn't fully caught on yet. Like it was like just starting to catch on, and then armor changes happened. So, but he's still really good. The problem is though, is you're so one-dimensional. Like you're just an old hero. You don't have a bag of tricks. Like you have two styles of Ryan, and one of them is the most boring piece of shit. And the one the most boring piece of shit is to stand there and hold your shield AFK like on the objective. You know, if you're behind the cart or wherever it is, and it's like you're just a fucking annoyance. Like you just don't do anything. You basically stand there AFK, and you just drain resources from the enemy team. You draw fire, you draw nade, you draw whatever they've got, like Discord or like whatever it is, and you stand there and you just like slug it out as long as you possibly can, and you typically outlive the other tank because like you're both basically trying to stand there and take as little damage as possible. Ryan can do a lot of that with his shield, and so what ends up happening is like if you try to get close to the Ryan, he does a lot of damage now with his swings, and you can't really get behind him with Tracer and poke him out the same way as before. I won't say like he's like hard meta or something like that, like some people might think, but the other one is like the pin style, like where you just basically are just like a missile, just trying to like pin through backlines and looking for picks with it all the time. And but other than that though, like you've kind of fallen behind, and it's like you don't have the same kit or the same tools as say like a Sigma or a Junker Queen or mobility like a Winston or Diva or Ball or Doomfist. And it's like you're basically just like you're like a I don't know how to say it. You're just like you have like a circle around you, a little circle of death, and it's like if they wander into that circle of death, you're gonna fuck them up. But nobody ever wanders into that circle of death unless they need to, so you have to force them to, and so it doesn't feel great a lot of time. But I think he's okay. I think he's probably dominating the metal ranks right now. I bet we're gonna see a surprise Ryan nerf somewhere. I'm calling it right now because like if Ryan's good in GM, that means he's dominating in the metal ranks. So they're probably gonna do some shit about that because fun's not allowed. But I'm gonna finish it with one huge hot take. I think Ryan v Ryan is 90% more boring in Overwatch 2 than it was in Overwatch 1. I think it's just decided most of the time by support cooldowns and support comps, and depending if you have like May or Sim or whatever it is, and like the actual chess matching between enemy Rhines is a lot more dumbed down and not that impactful compared to what it used to be. And like hitting a big slam and shattering a bunch of people, even after the shatter buff was huge. It was a huge buff, but the days of shattering their team and everybody falling over and you're the big hero doesn't happen that often. It's extremely rare, even after the change. So, I think he's all right, but
I will add on. I think it's not only Ryan. I think back in the day, it felt a lot better when you were matching up against stuff because there was a lot more chess kind of gameplay. Right now, you can especially feel with Reinhardt, it's not the same. I agree. It is mostly dependent on the compositions when you're doing the 1v1. But I think they've taken that away from all tank matchups. I like back in the day there was, I don't know if I'm just getting bored with the game or something, but back in the day when I was playing Winston or any other tank, it felt like there was a big thinking process between between the two tanks or the four tanks in this situation, but the two main tanks, and there was a lot of strategy involved. And for example, when am I gonna use my bubble to block the Rhine shatter or do this or for the Diva bomb, or there was layers. And now we just kind of, I don't feel like it exists. I feel like the two tanks are just either just the other one tank just insta kills the other, or they just ignore each other. And I think that's kind of boring. I don't know, how to fix it or whatever, but I wish it came back. I wish there was more layers to the tank 1v1, especially when there's only two tanks right now. So, yeah.
Yeah, one thing I noticed, Bogur, is that when you were close to your screen there, it was like there's like a fire burning. It's like you went to the pits of hell to bring this take. Like there's like an orange glow flashing in your face.
Because I don't know. I just really like layers of game. I like risk reward and I like layers. And I hate when the games take away that aspect. Like I don't like when a game gives me only rewards. I want to have a risk to it. So, for example, Reinhardt can only shield or melee or whatever. I like it when you have to choose what you want to do. Big risk with your cooldowns like bubble and stuff. Meanwhile, I feel like a lot of the new characters, they just give you a lot of rewards for doing stuff, and there isn't much risk to it, and you can get away with a lot of stuff. And I genuinely just feel like my brain is turned off for 90% of gameplay when playing Overwatch in general. Like, I'm sorry. Go on.
No, it's okay. I'm gonna speed up a little bit because I know I've taken a lot of you guys' time, so I want to kind of press on. Danteh, any thoughts on Reinhardt?
Honest.
There you go.
That's it. Full stop.
rating,
and
yeah.
outdated. But I think it's fun to play against. I'm not personally a Rhine player. I probably have like 2 hours on Rhine in all of Overwatch history. So, but I've always had fun playing against them. Rhine mirrors are really fun. I think he's a little too dependent on Mei being good. Like whenever Mei is good, Rhine is good. So if you want Rhine to be good, don't actually buff Rhine, just buff Mei, and then Rhine will
Isn't he
good.
dependent on Lucio as well?
Yeah, Lucio too, but Lucio is just always good in Overwatch too.
Yeah, I was
Like,
gonna say people just play Lucio all the time anyway, so regardless. Frida, anything you want to add before we move on to Roadhog?
Honest hero. I think the armor changes helped him a bit in a way where, because like he can bully the front line. I think it's kind of like what he should do in the game, where he should win against frontline characters, and I think there's a bunch that he does now with the armor changes.
I think
where he can outplay them.
Most. No?
Yeah, I feel the opposite too.
I feel like he loses more than he wins the frontline battles.
Except like Sigma. You bully Sigma.
You can bully Sigma, you can bully Winston if he's stupid. You can, maybe bully Bo and Doomfist, but again, if they're stupid, and that's about it, I think. Maybe, anyway.
Again, when I say this, I mean for the bottom 99%, which is important to say. Like the gameplay there, it's like people kind of don't know how to respond to Rhine, honestly. And this is why Flats, I hope this isn't going to be the case, but like the amount of space he can take and how people struggle and put too many resources into him to try to deal with him but don't outposition him, it's kind of strange, actually. It's almost like playing against a Doomfist in a way, where people just they position badly against it. But the stats of like I'm curious, like do you guys still think Orisa counters Rhine then? even with the armor change, because her damage will do less to armor, and his damage is much more
I think
severe
it's
against armor.
negligible. I think it's negligible. I think Orisa still can ruin a Reinhardt's day. Maybe not kill him, but deny value for sure, because she can force him to keep a distance with a spear, with javelin spin, with fortify. She can run away. So I don't
Just
know.
a 4v4 at that point. Just remove the other tank.
Yeah, pretty much.
And that is kind of what Orisa does, I think, in general.
It's interesting because in the first week of the patch, I felt like I was watching a lot of Ryan get played in streams as well, even top 500 streams. So I don't know.
But that's new patch hype, no? Like people just start playing new stuff when the patch drops. Everyone's trying
Ryan's
stuff.
good too. Like it's.
I don't think he's bad. I don't think he's terrible, either.
Okay.
Okay. Well, let's move on. Again, in the interest of time, I'm gonna move on here. We've got a diverse split of opinions, which is very much welcome.
All right.
We're gonna go to Roadhog. Now, much has been said, and I'll give you guys a little bit of a chance to kind of rant because he's been a hot topic recently. But I'm actually gonna go to Danteh first. Danteh, I mean, you might just say I'd never seen this guy, never seen him in my games because this is how he is at pro level. But Roadhog, your thoughts?
So I haven't played much ranked recently, so I don't understand like what the big issue with Roadhog is. Like I'm surprised he's even good right now with like armor changes and stuff. I wouldn't expect that. But never fun when Roadhog's meta. Overwatch 1, Overwatch 2. Heroes never fun to play against. I personally don't like playing him that much either. I don't know. I feel like you guys don't really play Roadhog much. Maybe Frito does, but I don't know. I've never thought he was particularly fun. He's really slow paced, and he's like an anti-fun hero. It's like Sombra. It's like you're like sucking the life out of someone else when you like kill them. It's just like it's not fun for them. I don't know. You have to be like a sick person to enjoy that. So yeah, I don't know. Dishonest hero, never have him good.
Yeah, I was gonna say I would ask a Roman emperor for the thumbs up, thumbs down. Like, is
Yeah.
it honest, dishonest?
Counter argument: a lot of Roadhog players are pretty chill, like Six. Salt.
Okay,
I
they
mean,
are
Salt
chill.
is chill, but
Salt
yeah.
and chill. I mean, he's in chat
but
right
he's
now.
a nice
and
guy. He's a nice
he
guy.
says
He's nice.
he
He's
is a
not
nice
chill.
guy.
He is a nice guy, though. That's my argument.
Yeah, he is a nice guy. We met him he's in chat. He says haters. He calls us haters, but flats.
They all know it though. Like they were pretending like Hog was terrible for months. Like, who are you fucking fooling? Remember like, oh, he's bad. And they were all like silently like going up to top 10. You could see like the ladder climbing, all the Hog players, and it's like something's wrong there.
They just gaslight the dev team into buffing him.
Oh yeah, they gaslight everybody. The Hog players gaslight everybody. You know why? Because it's the one tank that can play by itself. You know, we talk about all the other tanks need team play. They're the one fuckers who don't. So they get to play their own game with everybody else. They get to run around and go, hee! And just kill things and have a good time. Fuck you. Fuck your hero. Take him out back. I'll do it.
That one, he's on Flats' hit list.
I feel like if Flats became like a part of the dev team or like to control, like half the heroes would be deleted on day one.
Do you
like,
not remember my patch when I did the creator patch? My
No,
two
of
changes?
course not.
Orisa, I made her health bar only armor, and I took away her shield in Overwatch 1. And then on Roadhog, I made the hook cooldown 4 seconds, and then I like halved his damage so he couldn't kill anything. He was just a hook bot. That was it. Fuck him.
Great changes.
Yeah, thank you.
Frida, how do you feel about Hog? You said he's one of your BS picks.
Oh yeah, I love him because it my tier of gameplay. It's where all the Doomfist players like reside. It's where they all live. Like they're all pretty good, but they can't go any higher because everyone above that rank knows how to counter him, and they won't go lower because they just dominate. So like I've had to learn Roadhog, in my opinion, to have any fighting chance, or learning Doomfist myself now. But I want to I hope to channel Unsalted Salt, my Roadhog hero, and try to like think like I feel like if you put armor in his face, he's super inefficient now. Like he's really bad at auto winning the tank battle after the whole hog nerf, at least. When he had whole hog, that was absolutely insane. That was a free kill in any tank. Utter BS on that one. But it's just super slow to like work through any amount of shielding or armor, in my opinion. Like maybe you still dominate because you can go at squishies, but like you certainly don't run over the tank like you used to, which I think is a big benefit. I will say though, like Breather's too good, like without a doubt. Like Breather shouldn't be the way it is. I don't know why they keep buffing the DR on it, and but overall, like I like having an option to like play play that hero. I think he should be, on the cast for break glass if necessary. Certainly don't want him to be the mainstream hero. I also think there's like an issue. It's kind of interesting. I remember listening to Plat Chat and they were talking about this, but like on the Korean servers, nobody's playing Hog because they will commit to playing Dive and actually working together and playing the real game. But
Honest.
Honest players, yeah. Like if you coordinate and it's more so like our servers, they're just less coordination and people want to do their own thing and we have this individualistic mindset in how we play the game. Everyone, not just the tank player, but like everyone's doing that. So Hog's gonna succeed more in that kind of format.
I think Hog's a great example of dumbing the game down. And if I'm completely honest, like they've removed all counterplay. Like we used to be able to stop and like stun him out of his take a breather. That's gone. You just pop it again. You're gonna pop him. You could stun him out of his ult. That's gone. You just go again. Like Hook is still really good. They managed to find a way to bring back basically one shot and like not even just like the trap, just like find new fucking. I mean I don't know like recently, but like they found like new techs when like the way you pull people in like. You could still get like close enough for like the melee combo at pretty much one shots or does one shot, and it's like, you know what I mean? It's like they keep finding ways to break the fucker, and then like all the ways they used to have to kind of punish him are gone. So,
Reese didn't want me to talk about how there's a tech where you can like pull people around corners and body block them. So hopefully they don't figure that one out. That's you can pull a tanker on a corner, like past you, pretty much, like body. Yeah. So there's some bullshit with that
Too. It's bad.
Yeah. I think like I like the hook and trap.
I'm gonna move on now. I think we just in the interest of time. I think we got a good set of opinions on Roadhog there, and certainly last podcast I ranted for quite a while myself on how much I hate Roadhog, so I won't chime in any further. We're gonna move on to Sigma. So Sigma Gaming, Frito, I'll let you pick back up. Channel your thoughts now over to Sigma. How you feel about him?
Man, you guys just don't like anything fun. You guys all complained about the utterly bullshit ult change that was hilariously broken. Like, why can't we have fun bullshit things on tank, guys? Come on, I thought that was so hilarious. To pull them from underneath and fly up at them in the air. I have to actually line of sight it now. I have to aim it. Thanks a lot, everybody. You're forcing me to have to be good at the game. That's how I feel about Sigma. I don't know. Good hero. Good Overwatch 2 hero. I'm trying to think how I feel about it. It's like, if a lot of tanks were worse against Poke, Sig kind of doesn't care about that being the case because he was always good against Poke to begin with. So I don't know. I don't have strong opinions about Sigma. I think he's just fine.
Caesar, where does the Sigma place?
Honest, right?
Yeah, honest. I have to go with honest. He has his place. He's good on sniper maps. He's not that good on like the closer maps. I think he's also good at countering heroes like Bastion and stuff. He just has a good place. Not a perma pick. Good sometimes. I think it's like perfect definition of an honest hero. High skill cap. Bang.
Yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed playing Sig. I think he's like a better version of what Diva you guys described, right? Where it's like he's kind of like good at a lot of things, not outstanding at everything, but his utility is that he's kind of got a fair amount of answers to different things, and I think it's like all stuff that's none of it's like bullshit. It's like usually mostly hard to execute. I think he's like always inoffensive in that sense. Like he's not never like if he's obviously must pick meta, then it might be a problem. But like he's always viable enough, not oppressive enough. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with Sigma, even as someone who does play a lot of him. Bogur?
I think Sigma is, as we said, honest. I think it's a really cool character. I used to not like him, but he grew on me. I don't know. I like him now. I think it's a really cool character, and there's a lot of skill expression, so you can really see when you play against a good Sig. When I play against Vistola, I can never do anything on Sig v6, so I think that's pretty good. And I think he's in a really good spot as well. I think he's just good on some maps, and other maps he isn't. He has weaknesses, he has strengths. Great character. And I'm glad they reverted the ultimate change. I know if you like that change, you were probably bad at Sigma. So, God bless. I'm glad they.
God damn! Oh fuck! Shots fired, bro.
I mean, my. Go ahead, Frito.
I was gonna say that shield buff though. A lot of people were worried about that, but I think it actually adds some skill expression to the speed of the shield. Like you can actually like outstretch and save people a little bit. I think that was kind of neat.
Is a quality of life, but like the Sigil just kind of denied any kind of counter like play except Suzu and stuff. But like,
oh, sorry, I changed the subject. They buffed the speed of the shield going out, so you can like catch things.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think
it's a
that's
good
maybe
quality
a
of life.
better.
Yeah,
okay.
it's all right. It's all right, but I'm glad they removed the sig mode change. This is so stupid. What was really stupid about it is just it went through walls. I get it if they
Yeah.
it, like not being affected by tree and stuff, but like through walls. Damn.
Yeah, I will say the number of people I connect with Flux on average, like if there was a graph that showed that across my life or watch, it would be like 0.2. Suddenly it's up to 5. Then now it's back down to 0.2 again. Now that they reverted that buff. One more thing I'll add is that actually the Sig mirrors are actually interesting. It's just the problem is that the comps that Sig enables suck. Like
I think the sig mirror is really good. It's fun.
Yeah, it'd be
No?
really fun, but it's just
Yeah.
that the stuff behind it is usually AFK snooze fest, right? The stuff behind it is just
Yeah,
like
like double snipers and BAP.
exactly. So if there was a way to enable Sig mirrors that didn't enable all of that crap, I think it'd be like looked on a lot more favorably. Flats, any thoughts on Sig before we move on? Like, how do you feel about his power level?
I think his power level's fine. I think there's something to be said though. That character is always good, no matter what. Like not in every situation, but like there hasn't been a season where it's like, is Sigma bad? Like, and you're like, yes. Like it's every season's like, no, he's good. Like just like he has his place, like in certain spots and whatever. But I think he's like almost the poster child of a character that has everything, and like almost like the difference between old Overwatch characters where you had to pick something, like what is their niche, what are they good at, like they're either good up close, they're good at range, they're good at mitigating damage, they're good at securing kills. Sigma has it all. Surprisingly not in the most oppressive way. It's not like he's rolling lobbies because he has every button, but the amount of flexibility in Sigma's kit is astoundingly high. I think we're very lucky that he's balanced, he's designed the way he is and balanced the way he is, because like like in any more of any direction probably could have broke him super easily. But overall though, like good addition to the game. Works and is much better and much healthier in 5v5 Overwatch than was in Overwatch 1 6v6.
Yeah, he's one big beneficiary, I think, where we often talk about the people left behind, but he's like much better to balance in Overwatch 2.
Yep.
Yo, hot
Okay.
take. I think some of those
Yeah.
later stage Overwatch 1 heroes were just Overwatch 2 heroes because they were already working at the game by that point. Perhaps an argument could be
Yeah.
made.
For example,
Echo, Sigma.
how
Maybe not.
late was Sigma? Sigma, when did he come out? Didn't he come
He
out?
came out with Roadlock.
Yeah, that was like
2019.
5 years ago.
Anyway, whatever. They were working on the sequel very quickly. It wasn't just in
Yeah,
the
it's
drought.
true. It's
People
true, it's
forget
true.
that.
I don't
Yeah.
disagree.
I don't think it's as hard a take as it might seem. Like I think that's not a hot take. Winton, Bogur, how he feel?
I think he's really good right now. I know. I like him a lot. He's really bad on like rush maps, but on every other map, I think he's good. So he's good on 10% of the maps. But yeah, I think he's good when it's not rush, right? So he just can't play against rush. Back in the day, you kind of could by poking chokes, farming ult, but it doesn't exist that playstyle anymore. So I think it's good. I think the armor change is really good. The passive like heal also benefits him. His prime was really good. A lot of skill expression. Honest.
Hey, you don't get to
Honest.
decide that.
Yeah, you don't. Whoa, you're not
Danteh.
Caesar.
It's all your
Danteh.
fucking role
Danteh.
over there, buddy.
You're not the Caesar. Caesar.
Danteh, say it.
It's honest. I'm with him. He has the pass.
Thank you.
For once, the Winston brain rot wins out. Like, where do you rate him right now? Like, he's always been such a dominant appearance in pro play in Overwatch 2. Like, where do you rate him right now?
He's good on the high ground maps, but like I said earlier, the new map types and stuff, like sometimes you'll have a series where you won't even play like a payload map. You'll play Flashpoint, you'll play Koth, and you'll play what's another one? Push. All 3 rush maps, no Winston. So I think the map types like dictate how much he's played, but balance wise, I think he's like perfect. Doesn't feel like you're getting cheesed when you're playing against Winston. It feels good to play. Feels good to play with and against. It changes the heroes. You get a lot more Tracer and stuff. Like all the heroes that are with Winston are like honest heroes, like Ana and stuff. I guess people play Lucio Kiriko a lot now, but I don't know. All the heroes around him, good. Makes it a lot more fun for everyone. So
Yeah, that's probably the tipping point between like what we talked about with Sigma versus Winston, where it's like maybe objectively they're both fair and fun, but like what Winston enables is also on top of that fun. So we kind of look at even more favorably, where we're like, yeah, actually, the meta state this enables is actually really much more enjoyable. Flats, are you happy with Winston right now?
Winton good.
Winston good. Frito, Winston good?
Top tier tank. I'm a little confused on like what we would want. Like, I guess it was annoying when D.Va could counter him, but then now I don't know what dive tank would, other than mirroring Winston, and I'm not sure how I feel about that.
I think Doomfist versus Winston is okay, right? I feel like
It's doable.
I think it's doable. I think it really depends. I think in the rank, personally, I think might be a bit of a hot opinion, but I think Doomfist is a good pub stomper, and Winston might struggle a bit depending on the compositions, while Doom can get kills, and Winston's just way better in pro play, probably.
Yeah, 100%.
And you can also play the anti-Winston Doomfist, where you just kind of like, if he jumps, you punch him away, and then if you just block in front of his face, he can't even tase anymore because he's going to give you an empowered punch. So like, if you want to, you can be that guy, but...
Yeah, in general, big burst damage. So like an empowered punch does more against the armor now, for example. And even though there's knockback, I kind of agree with you guys, but like even though the knockback resist went up, it's like empowered punch is still enough knockback to actually move him, which is kind of rare. We didn't mention this earlier, but this is actually a thing that I think matters a lot. Like, on one hand, the devs want to make knockback resistance because it's like, well, we don't like getting booped around, but then tanks booping other tanks was part of that Overwatch 1 skill expression that now is entirely gone. So instead, all we have is mechanics and stuns, and that's not as deep as positioning battles.
I don't like 50% knockback resistance. I actually just hate it. I'll be honest. Like you can't boop stuff, you can't primal stuff. I think tanks should have. I know it sounds funny, but some sort of counterplay with boops. I know it's annoying when I get booped over and over again, but most of the time it feels like because it's my mistake, or right, like I'm playing on the edge. Now, if I'm playing on the edge, I can't even get punished, and I think it just rewards bad gameplay.
Till Lucio kicks you in the dick from 9 miles away, and then you're like, wow,
Yeah.
that's fun.
But
Well,
maybe
other
they
than
should.
that, though,
Maybe
yeah.
maybe the Lucio should boop less and not the tanks not ever getting booped, right?
They added so much boop creep as well. Like, they launched the game saying we're not going to have CC. Then it's like, well, but we're going to buff Lucio's boop. We're going to add a Lari. We're going to, like, we already got Brig. And then Venture coming out with, like, there's so many boops. So it's like, what do they do?
You're forgetting the most OP boop is the Suzu. When the Suzu boop used to come in, that shit was the worst. But yes, I agree with your point. I think maybe you could have tanks not CC resist other tanks, like the boop resist on other tanks. Like maybe that's a thing or something, so that they can do that. But yes,
it's a band-aid is kind of my point. It's like they keep they're creeping the game one direction and they have to over compensate in the other direction.
Yes, I agree. Okay, let's move on to Wrecking Ball. So we don't have any explicit ballers here, but how are we feeling about the ball boy? Flats, how you feel about Wrecking Ball?
I think he's sneaky, insanely fucking good. The problem is, though, is Ball still falls victim to ball syndrome, aka they swap 4 counters, you no longer play video game. And it's like, but if they don't do that, though, and you're like a good ball player, oh my god, you could probably fucking dominate. I feel like all the ball players are feasting as long as they don't get counter swapped into oblivion. But the problem is, though, once you start getting really high up, people recognize that and they just don't let you do it. So the problem, the big problem, the real problem with Ball is that in your metal ranks, they don't understand how to play with Ball because there's no frontline presence. So you just think your tank's throwing and you don't understand what they're doing. Like, you could be taking 3-4 people aggro. And it's like, they don't see that though. Like, their Ryan killed 2 people. You have 4 people aggro like a mile away. You win the fight. You're winning the game. And it's like, oh, where's our tank? Our tank's, it's like, whatever. But then, like, as you climb up and they finally start to realize, like, oh, I know how to play with Ball. Yeah, but they also know how to play against Ball now. So it's like, oh, and it's, catch 22 on that one. But I do think Ball is sneaky, really strong. You just have to be like a Ball connoisseur. And there's not many of those left after the great Ball drought of 2023.
I'm going to take it to our resident Caesar once more. Honest, dishonest.
Honest, I think insanely high skill ceiling. I think fun to, or maybe supports don't really enjoy playing against it, but as DPS, I never like had an issue playing against him. On tank, I also don't have an issue. I guess Mercy players and stuff and Moira probably like really hate it because it hard counters some characters. I think that's one thing that's annoying about him is like it's really frustrating losing to a boss because it's like, dude, just go Ana Brig and he literally can't do anything. Like, go Sombra, he can't play the game. But then you have people play like Moira Mercy, and it's like okay, well, they just win for free because we're playing bad heroes. So that's my only frustration, but that's like something you can't do about it. That's just the players you get. So
I agree 100%. Like sometimes you get in a game and they're running ball and your team won't counter swap, and it's like, well, yeah, we're just gonna lose the game. I can't match that value, like what he's getting on wrecking ball. I cannot match that value. So, but I'm not that salty about it either because I'm like, he's playing ball well. I can't. So fair play. So, Boger, any strong thoughts on ball?
I think he's really strong right now in ranked at least. I had a moment where I just kept losing games and I picked ball and I climbed like 2 or 3 ranks. I can't even play ball well. So I think he's really good right now. Hard to punish unless the entire enemy team swaps or they know what they're doing. And on tank especially, at least for me, there aren't many tanks I can go to really help my team with a really good ball. So unless my supports or DPS swap, I feel like I'm pretty helpless. But it's not because the character is just too easy to get value on. It's purely because the character is like the person playing the character is really good and popping off. So high skill ceiling, a low skill expression, a lot of tech, really fun character, honest, as we said, and just a good character and really strong right now. I think he's a huge pop stomper in ranked. There aren't many ways that they can actually just destroy you unless, as we mentioned, like just 4 people swapping.
Peter, anything you want to add on wrecking ball? Do you agree, disagree with what's been said?
Love Ball was one of my peak tank heroes in Overwatch 1 when he came out. I think like the armor changes made like Brig an even better counter against him because she has natural armor. So like your guns do literally nothing. And the thing I don't like about Ball right now is like, while yes, you have knockback resist, there's a lot of ways where little bits of knockback utterly stop your fireball. And so like one little boop just is enough to stop your momentum and utterly throw you off course. So it's very different from Overwatch 1, in my opinion. That, and then also like all the geometry. Because I don't specialize anymore in the hero, like I'm not used to all the maps and whatnot, so it's very easy for the map to just utterly roll you, which is similar to like, you know, Genji dash and stuff like that. You get caught in Overwatch 2 where you didn't in Overwatch 1. But I think when you buff an ult to the degree they did, it's like your character's going to be a lot better. Like because ults are so important to the game. Like Minefield is nuts now, like guaranteed kills. It seems like very, very devastating. So even I think you can then outplay certain things because your ult fight, it can be so strong. Like even if they try a little bit to contest you, you could always just play for your ult and probably gain map just based on that because that's so good. So I like Ball. I don't think I try to play him though as I'm learning Doom. I think Doom is an even harsher pub stomper, but maybe Ball has more sustainability for higher tiers. I'm kind of interested in that difference. Not sure I know why, but it feels like Doom screws you harder. Like it's just the kills are easier to get, I think, in the neutral.
Ball's he's a little bit more direct, I think. Like he goes and kills stuff. Ball maybe doesn't necessarily kill it as much as he occupies it. So I think that maybe that's part of it. Also, the grapple change I think really helped him as well. Like there's more you can do now with the like little grapple into actual pile drive. Okay, let's move on to our final tank. It will be Zarya. I want to take it to Danteh because he's actually mentioned Zarya a few times already in this podcast, and you kind of mostly been approving Danteh. So how do you feel about Zarya at the moment?
Personally, I feel like Zarya is like one of the higher skill cap tanks. Pretty honest. You get to you get big energy, you do big damage. If you don't get energy, you have bad bubbles. You don't do that much. I feel like if you're not that good at the game, you probably won't be that good at Zarya, but then good players get rewarded for being good at Zarya. It's kind of weird. I don't think she'll ever be that strong because when she's strong, the lower ranks, I guess she's really oppressive. I'm actually surprised that it's like that and other heroes don't shine more. Because I don't know, I feel like she just has a good skill expression. I can't understand why. But overall, I think she's good.
I can
Good
tell you
hero.
why Danteh.
I like-
Because
Okay, tell me.
bad player shoot bubble.
Okay.
Bubble get big energy.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Players
I
in
don't
your
know.
caliber, they're just like, yeah, let's just not shoot that bubble. Whereas like, yeah, in plat, they're just like fucking shoot it all the time.
That makes sense. I think choosing who to bubble, having clutch bubbles is really good. Really high. Like you need high awareness for it. So I think it's just a good hero.
Good
The
hero.
mechanics are really important. Aim, like right clicks, tracking, everything's good. So I
And
wish
where do
it
you
was
feel about her
meta
power
more.
level right now? Yeah, I was gonna say, where do you feel about her power level right now? You say more?
I think she's really weak for like most Overwatch too, just because the new tanks kind of just lap her. Ramattra, it's how do you play into Ramattra that has a shield, a left click, and then those form, and then ult? It's like you can't do anything to Ramattra. Like, you can't push past their front line, and you can't win the front line fight. So it's really hard. A lot of the matchups, even into Orisa, it's pretty hard. And like people used to think that Zarya countered Orisa, but it's just kind of outdated. Like Reinhardt.
Damn, that's not good to hear, I guess. Bogur,
Yeah,
how do you
sad
feel about it?
news.
I think Zarya just kind of maybe in a way suffers from the same thing as Diva. I feel like she doesn't really fit anywhere. There's just characters just do her stuff better, and to be honest, if you just don't shoot the bubbles, she's useless. I actually barely see any Zarya in ranked. Like I have no idea who plays Zarya anymore. So I honestly think Zarya needs some love. It's a really cool character. And I think she is a fun character when you pop off. When you get a lot of energy, it feels really good. You're just beaming everyone down. It feels like, oh, you're big and strong. It doesn't feel like it's bullshit when you play against her and she's popping off because she's just playing really well. And I do wish she got like some love because I feel like I think they've kind of been nerfing her more than buffing her, even though she's really not that strong. And it kind of sucks. I wish I would see more Zarya, to be honest. She seems really simple because she has like basically one ability because it's just bubbling. But there's a lot of skill expression, so I think that's cool.
Flats?
I pretty much agree with Bogur there. Not much
Yeah,
else to really
that's
say, to be honest. Zarya's gonna struggle. I mean, to be honest with you, she was built for Overwatch 1, and then they were like, here's Overwatch 2, how do we make it work? Here's a second bubble. Okay. Cool, I guess.
It's interesting because at the start of Overwatch 2, like everyone's fears was that the main tanks would be the winners and the off tanks would be the losers. But then at the launch, it was the opposite, right? It was like Diva and Zarya were doing really well. But now we've actually, I think possibly because back then more things were killable, right? Like you could kill more supports and stuff. Now when like everything lives, we've kind of gone back to prioritizing main tanks that also live, right? Like just big sustained tanks that also live. It's interesting how that shift has occurred. Hmm.
Yeah,
Frida?
Zarya was cool. Zarya was quite strong in the beginning. Sorry for cutting you off.
Yeah, no, I agree. Frida?
Yeah, she's one of the characters that I had to add to my hero pool because I think like in season 9 anyway, it was kind of there's a lot when people try to counterpick you, you kind of need picks to go to essentially, and Zarya is like a good rank character to counterpick back in a way when they're focusing you too hard. But I noticed like kind of interested how she interacts with the armor changes because it seems to me like she does more damage, I think, now, especially because her right click is a burst. So in some instances, when she does have energy, I think she's winning in that, in theory. So like, I think I mostly agree with everything that's been said. Like pretty fair, pretty balanced, but low key, maybe with a few changes would emerge as being a top pick again if they're not careful. So I think like just there's a bunch of tanks that are immediately impactful in the neutral, where Zarya is a really win more type hero where once she gets going, then she outpowers you with the like MOBA, like literal level up MOBA mechanic of energy. So I think she's always going to suffer from that. Like she's one of those tanks that like it is pretty counterpickable by the enemy tank because you know she can't move. So there's just a bunch of places she can't really be played, or it's really obvious where she's going to play. I'll say this though, like there's a bunch of like venture enjoyers that maybe have all vacated top 500 entirely, but good synergy with venture. So if you're out there and someone's feeding on venture, that's like there's just not many characters like that left, right? Like Reaper, we pretty much all agree is like, you know, not great, right? Or terrible, depending on who you ask. So where's like your consistent bubble target who's gonna feed for you? I think that's another thing maybe too, where because so many characters are self-sufficient, like in general, there's not really like a huge I'm going to feed to get value and I need a save cooldown, like where the supports are already doing that for somebody. Like it just there's not that much upside. Whereas if there was, then like if Reaper was sick, I think Zarya would be good, but Reaper's bad. And Venture also not so great.
Yeah, another one that relies on the synergy with her team potentially. Okay, again, I know I've taken a lot of you guys' time, so we're going to wrap this up now. And just concluding thoughts, I'm going to ask you guys 2 questions. One is your crazy change for Overwatch and your sane change for Overwatch. So this is where we're going to combine our hot takes and our reasonable takes. So just quickly rattle off crazy, pipe dream plus this is what I'd like realistically for them to do right now. We'll go with Bogur first. Bogur, crazy and reasonable.
I like the flex row thing, or I think that's a cool idea. And reasonable change, honestly, what do you define reasonable? I like the hero ban stuff, honestly. What you guys talked about, I'm kind of converted. I like that idea a lot. Is that reasonable or unreasonable?
You know what?
Is that a pipe dream?
We'll take it. Well,
In this call, it's reasonable.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, honestly, it really grew on me after you explained it to me. I really like that idea, to be honest. I think it's a good idea. I think it could shake things up. So that's mine. Yeah.
Interesting. Dante, how about you? I think I know where you're going.
Delete Kiriko and nerf her to the ground. Both my takes.
That's your your hot take is delete her. Your reasonable take is nerf her to the ground. I see. Okay. Flats, how about you? Hot take and your reasonable take.
The hot take is to build a talent tree system in the game somehow. Basically make it so you can enable almost anyone's playstyle. It builds their vision of being able to play whatever hero you want whenever you want, and it makes it able to work. My realistic one is I want to see them start to put out major game shuffling patches, like not patches, but like things like Season 9, like the reinventing the wheel thing much more often. And that one might not be as realistic. I'm not saying like every 3-4 months, but like maybe at least every 6 months. Is that a reasonable one?
I'd hope so. I'd hope 6 months is a doable time frame. Frito?
All right. Hot take is full exclusive pick, draft format, super nerdy.
Based.
No mirror picking. No. None of that. Then reasonable take is just hero bans. Like and I think the tank player should get to pick. That's what I think. Everyone tries to debate like, well, how does everyone get an agent? No. Tank player's been getting smacked in the face with counter picks forever. I think the tank player should be the one player who gets to choose what's going to get banned, and then the rest of you have to deal with it. And if you don't want to, then queue for tank.
What
none of you are.
Assault and he just bans every tank counter, and that's it. Roadhog only.
You only get one. You'd only get one, wouldn't he?
Well, you could ban Hog if you wanted.
Why would he ban Hog?
You could ban
Hog.
Me. Oh, yeah. True.
Let me know when you catch up.
True. Sorry.
He'd ban Reinhardt, you'd ban Hog, and now you just feast on Winston. It's easy.
I see.
It's easy. Okay, I like that. I think I also my hot take would just be generally those quick patches. Big fan of exclusive draft pick. I think reasonable take. I discussed on the last podcast, but the triage, dumpster the unfun, dishonest heroes. Let Flats have his shot. Like give him a gun with 3 bullets. Aim it at Hog, Malga, and Orisa, and then that will be much more happier. So I think that's like Overwatch I would like to see. But for now, that will be it from this podcast. So thank you very much to my guests, Bogur, Flats, Frito, and for his first appearance, Dante. Thank you so much for giving me so much of your time, guys. Appreciate your time and company. And your...
Happy Pride Month to everyone, because I won't be streaming in the
Month.
beginning. Yeah.
Well, there you go. Happy Pride Month. I think there's actually a blog now. I'm sure Flats will go read
there
it.
is. She's gonna content max for sure. Content max.
Thank you for giving me so much of your time, Dante. Appreciate you especially coming through for your first thing, and I hope you had a good one, man. What are your thoughts?
It was fun.
Now?
Would you say it's honest?
Do
Do you think? Yeah. Okay.
Honest podcast.
Yeah,
Base. That's all we need. Thank you very much, guys. Have a good one. Peace
All right.
out.
Take care.
Later.
All right. See you guys.
Later.
Yeah.
Oh, look at me. I'm in the call alone. I run the podcast now. I make the questions and the answers. All right, guys. That was a long show. How long have we been going? Almost 4 hours. Holy shit. The great tank debate. I'm going to cut off the stream now, guys. We'll see about making more videos and content, what I got in the tank after that long conversation. But thanks for everybody for tuning in on our side of the stream. We got a surprising amount of listeners. And, if you guys want to see the full YouTube VOD in all of its formatting, check out the Group Up YouTube channel, where SVB has these conversations with people, frequently for the past, I don't know, however many years. So this was a good one. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. I'll catch you later. Bye.